Alright guys, real quick before we get this episode started, we are kind of talking about some really graphic topics, so we just wanted to throw in a quick disclaimer before we got started. So,
this episode contains graphic descriptions of material that may seem extremely heinous or offensive. It's all love, but we're going to talk about torture,
incest,
murder of family members,
necrophilia,
rape,
pedophilia,
lactation,
feces,
sodomy,
animal abuse,
abortion,
and infanticide.
All right, enjoy the show, guys.
Yep. Good times are killing us.
Yo, 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 welcome to the Good Times Are Killing Us podcast. It's your boy David, and I'm here with K-Town.
K-Town.
And as always, Marquise.
Yo, 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 we're back.
We're back, baby, and today we are talking about Ichi the Killer, but even more so, the infamous director Takashi Miike.
Is it Miike or Miike?
Miike. Let's get that out of the way real quick, actually.
Let's get this right. Let's get our pronunciations down. Miike.
Takashi Miike.
Takashi Miike.
Not Takashi Miike.
It's not
Miike.
Takashi Miike, you fucking uncultured swine.
Pieces of shit.
Peasants.
Yes, it's M-I-I-K-E. So yeah, again, not Mike. It's not Takashi Miike. It's Takashi Miike.
Takashi Miike.
Yes, so Takashi Miike is a Japanese film director best known for his contributions to the horror genre through films such as Audition and Ichi the Killer, although he's credited as directing over 100 films, spanning from the extremely violent and absurd to comedic and family-friendly.
My boy's a hustler.
Yeah, he's got so many movies and so many different... He's got many styles, and he's coming at you from a lot of different angles.
Yeah, so right off the top, we're not going to be able to cover... We're not covering all of his movies today.
No.
There's no way.
You'd be a fool.
Yeah. You'd have to, like, that would be like a fucking semester in college. That'd be more than that. This would be like an entire degree just to watch all this guy's movies.
He's prolific as fuck.
A Takashi degree.
Super fucking prolific. And real quick, I just want to mention the kind of context of beginning this idea. Like, when we first got the idea to do an episode about, like, movies or a movie, K-Town, you were like, let's do an episode on Ichi the Killer.
Yeah. And
then I was like, okay, how do we get an angle on this? Let's think about Japanese horror. And I thought about the Japanese horror movies that I'd seen. And I was like, okay, I've seen a movie called Audition and Imprint. And then I looked them up, and then I realized, oh, shit, these are all the exact same director.
It's all the same dude, man.
Exactly.
He out here putting in work.
So he's done a lot of great movies. I mean, we'll kind of, we're going to go through at least 10 of them today. A couple deep dives, especially into Ichi the Killer, because that's probably his most famous and prominent film. But let's get into his bio real quick. So Takashi Miike was born in 1960 in Yeo, Japan, a small village outside of Osaka, which is like a bigger city. And he came from humble beginnings. His mother was a seamstress, his father was a welder, and a little bit of a drinker and a gambling man.
The boy was out here. He was in these streets. Mm-hmm. His dad was in these streets.
Like most fathers.
You know.
Like most fathers. He was a drinker. He was a gambler.
He was a new metal dad.
For sure. Yeah. If Takashi Miike was around for the new metal, he would have definitely beat up his dad.
There would have been some beatings in that house.
Probably. Okay, well, maybe. Who knows? I mean, considering his movies, I would not be surprised if he dealt with some bullshit. But the neighborhood that he grew up in was like kind of a relatively poor area with a large immigrant population. He was surrounded by other teenage boys who considered a life of crime in the Yakuza to be a viable option. So it's kind of like if you grow up in the hood and you see people getting in gangs, or if you were like a young Italian kid in New York during whatever time period, that was a very lucrative option.
You see an easy way out of poverty, and these guys are making money, and they're cool, and they have respect, and people look up to them.
It's that classic story of, like, you don't have shoes, and you see these guys in suits with, like, cars and money and,
pompadours.
Who came from the same roots as you, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
You see yourself representing, you're like, wait, I could be this guy. I should be this guy. You know, it's a sad story.
So he was around all this type of shit. He kind of came from a raw place. And while he actually originally said that, he originally said that he wanted to be like a dirt biker or a rock singer. Even though, like, he himself, like, he had said that he could have turned to a life of crime. He could have been one of those guys.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He could have been in there. He could have been one of these. He'd be a boss by now.
I mean, he still leaned towards extreme stuff, like even dirt biking, rock music. Those are both kind of like rough and tumble type of hobbies. But regardless, while these influences and the tendency to gravitate towards extreme, like violence and extreme elements of life will be represented in his later movies, he took a very different path in life after being inspired to be a filmmaker after watching Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon when he was just a teenager.
That was a big movie for that whole, like, just all of Eastern culture. Like, he was really, like, their first, like, big, like, movie star.
Oh, yeah, dude, Bruce Lee
Bruce
was
Lee,
huge.
like, yeah, he was the start of everything for them, like, movie-wise, like...
I mean, he was a badass guy that the
Yeah.
entire world was interested in, so he was a really good representation of
Exactly.
Japanese culture.
He was a positive representation. He wasn't, like, what was that, Breakfast at Tiffany's, like... The dude with the fake teeth, like doing bad
yeah.
Japanese
Oh, yeah.
accent.
Bro.
Oh, hello! Like he was like a good, legitimate like role model they could look up to.
And Bruce Lee talked about that a lot, how like there are all these really negative portrayals of Asian culture,
Yeah.
really stereotypical, which real quick, before we get too much into this, I'm sorry. Oh no. Wow. I'm sorry if we mispronounce. That was not even intentional. That was all me. I'm sorry if we mispronounce any of these names. We were not able to look up every single Japanese name of a movie or person or whatever.
We're trying our best, we're trying our best.
We're just a bunch of dumb American dudes here. We're just chilling. But anyway, Takashi Miike said that he wanted to be like Bruce Lee. He saw Bruce Lee. He wanted to be that cool, tough guy, kung fu guy, but he was like a short guy, really frail. So even though he could never become a badass like Bruce Lee, he set out to make tough guy characters in his movies. So when Miike was 18, he actually went to film school, but he was an infamously bad student. Like
Not good.
Yeah, he would just skip classes. He was rarely ever there. Like the attendance records showed that he was just never there.
Your boy was bullshitting and partying. You
Yeah.
know? He was like, oh shit, I gotta get up at when?
And he shows up at the end of class, like, oh, all right, whatever. Like, but even though he didn't really go to classes much, he did soon after get picked up and doing gigs for like local television companies, and that's kind of like he was like a school of hard knocks type of guy. He learned by how to be a filmmaker by just being on set.
He just jumped into it instead of studying the trade. He just went in and just started working from the bottom.
Exactly, because he was bored by the school environment. So he worked as an assistant director eventually for this television company, and he worked there for 10 years. So 10 years of just being an AP.
Just doing the time, putting the work in, just on all aspects, just being on set and doing all that shit, like getting that real hard knock education.
Seeing how it all really works. But also, this is important, because like we said, he made 100 movies. He's on a film set every single day. It's his day job. And eventually, when he became a filmmaker, that just kind of became what he always did. He was like, this is what I did for 10 years, and now I'm a director, I'm going to keep doing it. But he finally directed his first movie in 1995 called Shinjuku Triad Society. And this, among his other early films, were extremely low budget, straight to video movies that enjoyed moderate success in the V cinema industry, which was very big in Japan at the time. So V cinemas were shown, they were like little theaters that showed only direct-to-video movies, and because these were so popular, you had a lot of kind of like low-budget movies coming out in Japan, because they were like, okay, we can make this, we can show in a theater, we can put it on video, like we can actually get some decent revenue from it. So there's a lot of room for like experimental directors and people doing weird shit.
Just because it's not broadcast to a broad audience, this is a very niche group of people. Mm-hmm. It'd be like, and this is actually a really sick idea. It'd be like, if there was a B movie theater here where you could go watch, like, I don't know, fucking, there's probably better examples, like, but I guess like Sharknado in a movie
That'd
theater.
That'd be sick, like a sci-fi theater. Dude, imagine if there was like a
or
Netflix
if you could
theater.
go see fucking like Troll 2 in a theater.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
and it was like, and the theater was relatively packed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we kind of have that.
Do we?
The narrow.
No, don't tell me about no Rocky
that.
Horror. Like,
no, I mean, but they play stuff like The Room and like Troll 2 sometimes.
Okay,
but
they
those are
don't
like
do it all
old.
the time.
Those are like old cult movies. I think it'd be cool
Yeah.
if like you had like Netflix original movies. Like, why can't I see those in theaters? Because those are some bomb ass movies. Why can't there just be like a little theater? That's kind of like
low budget, but low budget like B movies.
Yeah, and that's a lot of those Netflix movies I think kind of are like that. But that's kind of like what they were doing here. But because of this, I mean, you got a lot of kind of like raw movies. You got gangster movies. You got comedy. and quote-unquote erotica movies. So I don't know if that's porn.
That's porn.
That's,
They know
that's
porn.
probably softcore porn.
Yeah. It's softcore shit.
But there wasn't much censorship. So again, Takashi Miike is used to working on movies constantly. He goes in the V-cinema industry for years where he's just making movies that have barely any censorship. So for almost 15 years, he's just on this type of grind that would shape the rest of his career. So finally, things started popping off in 1999 after directing 8 of these movies. 8 of these V-cinema movies, yeah.
Fuck.
Like a whole fucking career for a lot of directors. By that time, he finally released Audition in October of... in October of 1999.
Yeah, 8 movies. Like Quentin Tarantino's out here bragging, like, and his like the credits for his new movie, like the 9th film by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, this dude like rocked out 8 movies and then did
Off
In
dick.
4 years.
Just off dick. He was just like movie. Yeah, he puts out multiple movies like every year, but we'll talk about that again a little bit later. But Audition is it's a pretty. I mean, K-Town, you just watched this movie today. What'd you think of
dude,
it?
it was by far, in my opinion, the best movie he's put out that I've seen. I haven't seen all 100, but it's a really good movie. It's a slow
Wait,
burn.
you didn't see all 100?
No. I wish. I'm sorry I didn't.
Dude, you got to do your homework.
I
Man.
didn't put in the work like y'all did, but no, it's a good slow burn. It's got a really good story, really good premise, and it just really builds up. And then that last 10-15 minutes just fucks with you, dude.
Yeah, it's real rough.
Most of these movies that we like watched, or this like group of movies, they are a bit of a slow burn. Like like or they sometimes come in a little hot and then like just kind of like drop out for a little bit in the middle, like where you're like, all right, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
man?
Audition by far though is like I think the biggest one because it legitimately for like the first it's a 2-hour long movie.
You want to go into the plot a little bit?
Well, yeah. So basically, this guy loses his wife at a pretty early stage in his life. His son's like 5 or 6. The wife passes. You know, they live, they grow up. Dude's a successful businessman.
And he like never remarries.
He
again.
never remarries, never really dates. He's just, devotes his life to his work and his son. And his son, the movie picks up, like, his son's like college age. He's like studying dinosaurs or some shit. And he tells his dad, you don't seem happy. You should start dating. So he goes to a bar and he's talking with his friend, and his friend is like a movie producer, and his friend's like, well, if you want to date a woman, it's really hard at our age to find, 'cause they're like 40s, like early 50s.
This is also probably before like internet dating. Well, I
Yeah.
think internet dating was probably just popping off.
It was
right
like
then.
99, so
It's
like
not like what it is now.
yeah.
This is
It
like-
was hard, like chat room shit.
Yeah.
So he's like, why don't I have this script kind of throw away, I might be able to make a movie out of it, but why don't I just, we audition the role and you just come
Real
in and
quick.
pick out one of these chicks.
So he holds it's basically like a fake audition. They kind of want to do something with it, but
But
it's
they're not upset if like it doesn't go through. Like,
Yeah.
they don't have funding yet, but it's mainly they're like it's just if it happens, it happens. But mainly they're doing it for the dude so he could find a girlfriend.
Yeah, because the idea is, okay, there's an excuse to have 30 different women come in. You get to find out about them. You see what they look like, find out their hobbies. Are they, like, what are they good at? Are they hot? Whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just, like, kind of on the low, going to slide on in them DMs and talk to them. And he gets, like, he sees
It's a
all
cringy
these...
thing. Can we say that it's
Yeah, it's a really
thing?
cringy
Yeah.
So
concept.
me and Payne have kind of different views on it.
Cape Town thinks it's chill. He thinks it's fun.
I don't think it's fine. No.
That's a totally valid way of finding a girlfriend.
No, it's shady, but the way he goes about it, basically, he looks through these applicants, he picks 30 for his friend to interview. He finds this one girl's essay, he really connects with what she says.
And she's, like, one amongst all these, like, really hot, begging cool girls.
She's kind of normal looking. I mean, she's pretty, but she's not like some of the girls are like porn stars and stuff like this. And he just really connects with her, like just like on a like an emotional level.
He's, like,
through her
really
essay.
intrigued.
He's really intrigued by her.
So one thing leads to another, and kind of skipping over a little bit, eventually he's at his apartment, and...
Did we mention spoiler alert for all of them?
Oh, yeah, real quick, all of these movies are, for one, they're really old, but we're spoiling all of these movies that we're
You
covering.
should still go watch them, even with the spoil, because they're Japanese movies. It's going to be kind of hard to follow the plots anyway, and it's good to have kind of like someone spoiling it
Like a
for you a
Spark
little
Notes
bit
almost,
to kind of
yeah.
like get you into to like really understanding what the movie's all about.
Yeah, so real quick, if you haven't seen his movies, or maybe you've only seen a few, depending on how interested you are in this guy, you might want to go back, watch a movie or two, and then come back. Or, if you just want to hear a bunch of fucked up shit, which is mostly what we're going to cover on this podcast, which is about to start pretty much right now, you can also just do it that way. So pretty much, the movie ends with him in his apartment. He's drinking some drink that has been drugged. She rolls up. She's got this whole fucking, like, leather. It almost looks like some, kind of like Hostel.
Hostile.
Bro. Yeah.
They took a big cue from it.
Yeah, very Eli Roth, much influence.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. We got some stuff to say about Eli Roth later on. So she puts these. He's paralyzed, and she starts getting on top of him and putting these needles in his chest. And the whole reason is because that kind of shocks his system so much that he can't go into shock when she inflicts worse pain on him later. Because
she wants him to feel everything she's about to do to him.
Exactly, and this is all because she's jealous because she found out that he had an ex-wife. She's like, no, I can be the only one. He finds out that he has a son. Yeah. She's jealous of the son.
Her whole thing is she wants him to be in love with just her. All of his love, everything he can focus on is her.
Just her.
And he can't do that if he loves his son in her eyes.
Exactly. And keep in mind, she's been very abused throughout her entire life. This is a product of a world of men that have been really shitty to her. So it kind of plays out like a revenge type of thing, although in her mind, I think it's even more than that.
The music director or whatever that she was working for, like, she was dating him and he cheated on her with her friend, and that's kind of like just like the cherry on the top of the cake for everything that's gone wrong in her life.
So moving forward with that torture scene, she puts these needles in him in his chest, and then she fucking like has all the needles in him, and she just like crawls up on the needles, and they all angle into his body. He's just like, oh, and she puts 3 needles in his eyes, and she fucking flicks them like ding ding, and he's just like, oh, like. And then she proceeds.
Takashi loves his fucking needles, man.
It's literally. I have a severe needle phobia. It's like literally my fucking hell.
Yeah, if you don't like needles, this movie will fuck you up. And Imprint later, which we'll talk about. But she gets out a piano wire and goes to his foot and just starts sawing his fucking foot off,
like playfully, like that fucking kitty. Like everything that she was doing, it seemed like she was just having like an innocent child's play, like.
Like she's playing with Play-Doh as like a 6-year-old.
Exactly. And even the way she like sawed his leg, like sawed through the bone of his leg, and she was like smiling and just playfully like just sawing the shit.
And Takashi's really good about putting just like really sick details into everything. Like all the sounds are really just like
you can tell when they get to the bone, and it sounds a little more solid.
When she pulls the piano wire back up after she cuts the leg off, it's like coiled up, like it's actually been cutting through something. Like it's just these little details that make it so
like
real,
visceral, like very
that make it really hit home. Like that's what you would actually see.
Yeah.
But then this is fucked up. Then the son, who has not met this woman, who just knows about this woman, blah, blah, blah.
He was supposed to be staying at his like friend's house, and he comes home early.
Yeah, he comes home early, and then he just sees his dad lying down with his fucking foot cut off. Like, she heard the door, and she walked away.
She's in the process of cutting off the second leg.
Yeah, she's cutting off his second leg. Then she hears a door open. Then she kind of like flees away for a second. The boy comes in. She grabs the mace to fuck up the kid. The kid comes in, sees his dad, and he's just like, call 911, fuck. And imagine just coming in there and seeing your dad with his fucking foot cut off, all these needles in him. Yeah. So she comes up she maces him, right? She does mace him.
She starts macing, like she chases him up the stairs. She maces him a couple times, and then he like kicks her. Yeah. And she goes flying down the staircase and like dies.
Presumably has died.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how the movie ends. And you're just kind of like, fuck. Like, so and this is a very famous movie. Like, all of his other movies were just kind of like these kind of pulpy, goofy movies, but this movie gained like a huge international following because not only was it a horror movie, it's like kind of like an art house movie, and it also has a lot of commentary on like women. Like some people see it as like about women's objectification in Japan.
I'm really glad I watched this movie after watching all of his Goofy movies, because the Goofy movies are cool. Like they're funny. Like, if you watch them and really understand what they're pretty deep and everything, but like this movie was like a whole nother level. Like this wasn't actually like a good film. This was a good film. Like
he was saying a lot how his movies aren't about monsters. His movies don't generally have like any kind of like unreal fictional character. There's all about
demon or like ghost or something in it.
It's about the demons inside the characters, and that's where this movie really starts off. So this movie was really influential. Like here internationally, this movie had a big influence on the influx of like torture porn films throughout the 2000s. Like Eli Roth was super inspired by this. James Wan, the director of Saw, movies like Saw, Hostel, High Tension, Wolf Creek, all those movies that came out in kind of like the early to mid 2000s that had like super hyper violent gore. Even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes, they were all in a huge way considered to be influenced by this movie because nothing like this had really come out yet.
Yeah, I mean the whole like scene in Saw where he's like cutting through his foot, like that's like it's so you can totally see like how that's completely the scene from Audition.
It's a direct parallel. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Along with the fucking
rubber suit she's wearing.
Butcher suit.
That's what all the torturers and Hostel are wearing. Like the same exact outfits and everything.
Yeah, and still to this day, like Quentin Tarantino says, this is one of his favorite movies of all time, and he'll pop up again later in our story. But Eli Roth actually, he was super influenced by this movie. Like he even had Takashi Miike has a cameo. He had a cameo appearance in Hostel where some guy was just like, "Oh, what's that place?" And he was like, "It's dangerous there.
You don't want to go in there, boy."
Yeah, you don't want to go in there. And he's like, "Why?" And he's like, "You'll spend a lot of money." Really ominous. But this movie had a huge international following, and he didn't even really intend to that. He never wanted to make a movie that was going to be huge everywhere, but out of nowhere, he's huge. So moving forward. By the way, one more thing. There's apparently an English language version of Audition in production right now. So it might seem like we're kind of talking about like this kind of like nice quality movie, but now we're going to start getting into the shit.
Some of the better shit, yeah. So let's get into the real shit now.
So the same year, this is what's crazy, the same fucking year that he put out Audition, he also put out a movie called Dead or Alive, where the first 8 minutes of this movie, like Mark, you were saying you couldn't even, you were like, this is the beginning?
I thought it was a trailer, bro.
It
was a trailer with a bomb-ass score.
Like 50 super like cuts of just like crazy, just off-the-wall shit
So what is there? There's a dude taking a 15-foot long rail of coke,
like,
and he
we're not exaggerating. It's like literally like 15 feet long. This dude just does this 15 long line of coke, and at the end of it, he pushes over a bookshelf.
Yeah, you see a woman get thrown off a building. You see a dude getting anally raped in a fucking bathroom, and then the guy who's raping gets his fucking neck cut.
Bro, all the while there's this fucking like I don't know like white zombie like gnarly riff playing in the background.
It's sick.
It's really fucking.
Right away, you see a woman get thrown off a fucking building. A dude takes a 15-foot long rail of coke. Some dude's getting anally raped in a bathroom.
There's another dude literally eating like 15 bowls of ramen.
For some reason, this guy's eating ramen the whole time.
There's a strip club where a stripper is like fucking stripping down, and a dude's like I guess fondling her with like a baton. Like,
it's in the background the whole time. They just keep going back. Like you're seeing a dude getting anally raped, and you're just like fuck, and then just like oh yeah, fucking stripper, hot stripper. And then at some point, some dude just roll up with guns and just shoot up this whole fucking club with this guy eating ramen, and they shoot his stomach. And then his stomach explodes with ramen.
Yeah, they like shoot him from the back, and then like the front of his they shoot him in the back as he's running away, and the front of his stomach explodes out, and there's just literally like all the ramen like undigested just explodes out and goes all over the restaurant.
Yeah. And then when the cleanup crew arrives after, a guy rolls up with chopsticks and picks up some of the ramen. He's like, "Yep, he was eating ramen."
People are pulling guns out of everywhere.
They're just like in a deli, and they pull it out of like a block of cheese.
Under cheese, guns from like people walking in the street. Like
there's just a clown walking out by the street with a big ass shotgun. This guy just grabs the shotgun and jumps on top of this guy's car. This guy's getting head from a prostitute. So this guy's in his car, and this guy goes on top of the car, shoots him in the head with the fucking shotgun while he's getting head from a fucking prostitute. This is all just a convoluted mess. I don't even know how to describe it. And the movie fucking ends with literally like these two dudes are just fighting in Mortal Kombat.
The showdown, yeah.
It's just these two guys fighting. One of the guy he pulls out a bazooka. And then the other guy pulls
which is wild already.
Out of his back.
Yeah,
he was already blown up. In a car,
ripped his arm off.
Rips his arm off, and with his other remaining arm, pulls a bazooka so clean.
A bazooka that's completely bigger than him.
Like he's just on some Fortnite shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other dude rips out his heart, and it's like a fireball. And he throws it at the other guy. The other guy shoots the fireball with a rocket launcher. And then it goes to this like really cheesy shot of like the globe, and then all of Japan just blows up.
And it looks like it's about to be the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So there's this one little fight between these two guys. The whole world explodes, and this movie had 2 sequels.
Yeah, that's just part 1.
Yeah,
I think
part 1.
Back from that, we will never know because we're not watching those other movies.
And this was just like a Yakuza like crime movie. This wasn't like some like superhero shit. This was just a Yakuza crime movie that there's a fucking fireball getting ripped out of a heart.
That's the thing, though, and we're not going to talk as much about all of his Yakuza movies, but that's what mostly he was making. It just happened that Dead or Alive was like kind of the bigger one. This one did get a theatrical release the same year as Audition, so in 1999...
was a big year for Takashi Miike. 99.
Big year for your boy. Mm-hmm.
So we go from like 99 with fucking Audition and Dead or Alive.
And then we're going to move forward.
2001.
So
also big year for your boy Takashi.
In 2001, yeah, we're going to cover 3 movies, including Ichi the Killer right here. But the first movie to come out in 2001 in March was fucking Visitor Q.
I hated this fucking movie. Like, straight up. I didn't... So, I had a kind of a weird viewing of it. Mark and Payne, like, watched it with subtitles and they could follow the story. I saw it without subtitles. You really don't need subtitles to watch this movie. It's basically a really shitty porn.
I saw it without subtitles as well, but I did have Payne here who had seen it with subtitles to explain most things to me. But there was only really maybe 2 or 3 scenes where I really, really needed those subtitles. I was like, what could they possibly be saying here? But you could say that for the whole movie.
So yeah, let's real quick. So yeah, it starts off with a dad fucking his prostitute daughter, and this is what's already weird. Again, this is some Takashi Miike shit where it's like, how can I take this to one little extra weird level? He comes too early, and then she tries to charge him extra, and she complains. It's like, you're already getting fucked by your dad for money, and then you want it to be good?
It's a really weird scene. Like, you think a scene like
you
this...
You always want sex to be good.
Like, I could see...
Even with your own dad?
If you're doing it, if you're having sex with your dad, oh, God, you know, you want it to be good, I guess.
But then right after that happens, the father is just chilling on a subway or some shit, or he's like chilling like a station somewhere, and then the line just says, "Have you ever been hit on the head by a stranger?" And then this guy just hits him on the back of the head with a fucking rock, and throughout the rest of the movie he's got his bandage on. Then we cut back to the house where the guys...
the mother of the family.
The mother, the matriarch of the family, is getting beat by her own damn son.
Yeah, we cross over to new metal because beatings are happening in this
he's
home.
like beating the shit out of her too.
Yeah, he's chasing her like,
and he's like 14.
Yeah, just beating up his mom.
What she's also mostly saying in that scene where she's like when getting beat for the first time, you see, is not the face.
Yeah,
not the face, not the face. Apparently, she's just repeating over and over again.
Oh, she's a prostitute.
Yeah, we later find out that she's.
I'm
going
to break this down really quick, and this is gonna fuck it all up. But what would you even say the plot of this movie is?
Oh God.
Okay, so what I think the plot.
I challenge you to give me a plot.
Let's go back because I have a thing on that. I'll tell you. But let's rattle off some other shit. So he's beating the mom. The mom starts doing some fucking heroin.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of bullies that are shooting firecrackers into their fucking houses, destroying their house.
They're like literally shooting like bottle rockets through the fucking window. It's like an attack.
And they're like teenage bullies. They're like the son's
relentless.
age.
Yeah. And no one cares. Like the mother's just like, whatever. I'm shooting up heroin. Like the dad's in the kitchen eating like rice or some shit.
Yeah,
with noodles.
And there's just titular visitor.
Yeah, with the dude that hit him in the head with the rock.
Yeah, this ominous visitor Q guy. By the way, the guy that hit the dad on the head with the rock, he's now just hanging out with the family. They don't explain that. He's just like, oh, here I am.
He just comes home for dinner.
Yeah, and he's just eating food, asking the mom for seconds, and she's just like, okay. Meanwhile, getting beat by her son. He's like, oh, I'll have another round of noodles. And she's like, okay. And then the son just rolls up as she's going to go get the noodles, just beating the shit out of her. And the dad is just watching his wife being beat with this visitor Q guy, just chilling while his own wife's getting the shit beat out of her. But then, like, as the night goes on, he's in bed and the wife comes up and she's like, I want to have sex. And then he's just kind of like, whatever. And then she smells his dick.
Yeah, what'd you think about that, K-Town?
That was fucking, like, I'm telling you, I hated this fucking movie. She's just like about to like give him a head and she's like sniffing his dick and she's like, man, this smells like our daughter's pussy.
Yeah.
And like she starts like tasting it and she's like, were you with our daughter? And he's just like, get off me, and rolls over and goes to sleep.
He's tired.
Yeah, and he's just like, I'm tired, and she's just like, oh fuck, like my life sucks. I at least want to get fucked by my own husband, but he's fucking my daughter. So shit, I can't win anything. So we find out that she's a prostitute later on, and she kind of does some like she's like with some sadomasochist guy who's like beat me, and she's like barely beating this dude with the belt. She's just like, and he's just like, no, beat me like you mean it. And she's okay. So yeah, it's just a big thing. Like, so basically, again, this is very hard to even talk about. This movie is such a weird plot, but we kind of figure out that the dad is making like a documentary on bullies, and there's this one scene where he's out with a cameraman and he's trying to talk to some young bullies, and they're like, oh, you want to talk to some bullies? So they start beating him up.
They're like, you want to know about violence?
And
you want to
then-
know about bullies?
Then
They steal his mic. They steal his mic. For some reason, his cameraman keeps recording, and they shove that mic right up his ass.
and they show it. Like, it's
Yeah.
straight up, you see it. Yeah.
In the same way, okay, we haven't gotten to the milking yet, but there's certain
Oh
scenes
my
in this
God.
fucking movie that it's like, whatever, this is a movie. There's a certain,
I straight up hated this fucking movie. I don't even want to talk about this shit.
there's certain things that, like, you know, you can kind of separate, like, okay, this is a movie, this is a film, this is not really happening. Certain things in this movie, like, whatever, they're happening.
Yeah, you're really seeing a guy's actual ass getting pounded by a microphone.
Yeah.
And soon afterwards, we cut back to the house, and the mom is chilling at home. She's walking around, and she sees this visitor Q guy. This guy again, the guy that hit him with the rock, blah blah blah. And then he's just like, "What up, baby?" And like she rolls up.
Let's talk about our visitor real quick. What
Well,
we're
gonna- I wanna get on that.
Okay, we'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
So she's just chilling on a bed, and then he gets behind her, and he's like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," and then starts like fucking
Massaging
twisting,
her nipples.
massaging her nipples, and then she just starts just gushing straight milk, and this shit is real.
Yeah.
It's not. This is like we're actually seeing it. You see the way it comes out. It's like, oh fuck, dude. Like
Yeah.
she's straight lactating.
Yeah, she's truly lactating.
The
and it's
actual
like-
actress is lactating. By the way, this actress, just want to mention real quick, we actually looked into her biography a little bit.
Dark history.
This woman who's being milked, this actress / character who's
The mom,
actually being,
the mom that got beat.
the mom that's getting beat is a prostitute and a heroin addict that's getting milked right now. This actress, she wrote
It's a lot. No,
this actress wrote a book called Fatherfucker in her real life, which is about her being constantly raped by her stepdad, and while her mom just kind of like accepted it. So this woman's got a fucked up life, and she's just doing this fucked up movie.
So
She's
she
like,
was precious.
Okay, so moving forward, so we see that the dad is recording. He's driving around with a camera. This woman, he's kind of like coworker or whatever. They catch his son being bullied by these kids. The bullies are making his son take a shit. They're like, do it.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
I forgot about that. Yeah, there's a
I
lot of
hate
kicking.
this
I don't know
fucking
what all
movie.
this kicking and shit. Like
So-
kicking him about.
So he's like, okay, we need to record this. This is the father who's doing the report. And then his coworker, this other reporter lady, she's like, no, you're crazy. Like, everyone saw the video, because somehow everybody saw the video of him getting anally raped for some reason. It was like broadcast.
It was actually broadcast on like TV. Like,
So she's like, no, like, this is crazy. You're crazy. I'm over this shit. And he's like, fuck you, bitch. And then starts like beating her up. And then Visitor Q rolls up, and he's got a camera, and he's recording while this guy is just beating up this woman. And eventually he starts like violently raping her. And then she dies. Which maybe we should have put a trigger warning at the top of this episode. But by the way, we'll be talking about some fucked up shit.
Yeah,
this
it's
shit
all
is, like,
fucked.
pretty-
I just wanted, for the 15th time, I hated this fucking movie.
yeah,
Oh, you
it's
ain't
not good.
The audience has not even heard.
So he violently rapes her, and he eventually kills her, and he throws her in the trunk of his car, drives
takes
back
her
to his
home,
house, and he takes her in the backyard. He's got like this like greenhouse thing in his
The
backyard.
plan is to cut her up and bury her.
Yeah,
Like,
but
it's
she's looking a little good to him, so he
looking like a
starts.
snack.
He's like, all right, well, I guess I'll fuck the corpse, and he starts
All right, I guess.
having sex with the corpse, and like,
This is all so bad.
yeah, dude.
All right, let's let it roll. Let's let it roll.
I don't even want to talk about it, but he's fucking the corpse, and he starts like saying like, "Oh God, she's getting wet," and like he's like getting excited.
It's like, oh, what the wonders of the universe, the wonders
Yeah.
of nature that a corpse can still get wet.
Yeah,
Ooh, great.
yeah. And then he looks down and like wipes his hand underneath of her, and she's like just shit herself.
And he's like, this is shit.
Yeah, that was the best.
He's like, oh, this is shit. Oh, you stink. Oh, and he's like he's got a bunch of shit in his hand. He puts it on her back, but he's still fucking her. He doesn't even stop.
And meanwhile, while all this is going on, it cuts to the kitchen,
Oh yeah.
and visually,
Oh yeah.
the mom is in the kitchen. She puts on a black trash bag and cuts holes out so that her breasts poke out through the trash bag.
She's like, check this out.
And she's
And
just like
then
super
Visitor
soaking.
Q is sitting on the floor with a clear umbrella over his head, and she's squirting milk out of her nipples onto the umbrella.
Again, this is real. This is actually
She's
happening.
just milking herself onto the umbrella, giggling the whole time, and then she starts pissing herself. And Visitor Q's just sitting there looking up like a kid looking up to like
Great job.
teacher or something, just like
Doing good. Doing
and
good.
there's just milk splattering on this fucking umbrella.
Oh, and the floor is covered in milk.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's pissing herself.
Yeah, and
There's
she's
about a
pissing it, too.
inch layer of just milk on the floor now, like
It
just
is-
like breast milk.
So then, cut back to the husband fucking this dead shit corpse, and then he realizes he's like done, and he tries to get out, but his dick is stuck in the corpse, and he's like, "Oh no, my dick!"
Oh, yeah.
And then the wife, who has been milking herself, all of a sudden gets tired. She hears something, and she comes out, and she sees her husband with his dick stuck in this dead, shitty corpse lady's vagina, and then she's like. And she's like, "Oh, let me help you." And it cuts to them in a bathtub, and she's like doing all this stuff. She's putting all these like different materials in the water to like soften him up or whatever.
She's trying to get that dick out of there.
She's trying to like, no, not my husband. Get that dick out of there.
We can get out of here. We can fix this.
And they're doing this whole thing, and then eventually she's like, "Wait, I got an idea." She grabs her heroin, shoots him up full of heroin. He gets out, and then they're like happy. They're like bonding
this
over
is
this.
a truly bonding, like family bonding
It
moment
fixed
for them.
all the family problems that they were having.
So they grab the girl's corpse, they take her out, and she's all stuck, and they put her on a table, and I don't even. Then then it cuts to the daughter. The
all
daughter
awful.
is just out in the streets. Like, it just cuts randomly to her, and she's walking around, and then she runs into Visitor Q again, who's also for some reason just out in the streets now. And then he hits her on the head with a rock.
He hits her with the rock.
She hits her with the rock.
They were roommates.
And and then it cuts back to the family's house, and where the daughter's rolling up after having a long day of hoeing and get hit by rocks. She rolls on up, and then she goes to the greenhouse, and the husband and mother are just. Or he's like sucking her titties, and then the daughter gets down and joins on the other titty, and that's how the movie ends.
She sees dad sucking the tits, and she's like, she makes a face like cool, man,
Like as if she knew that like they
finally.
probably had like a challenging marriage, and she's like, oh,
it's like
finally.
everything's finally fine.
And she joins. Oh, and also before
let me
that,
get that left hit.
we forgot to mention that also. I kind of skipped this, but the mother and the father were like cutting up this woman's body, and they're like bonding over the whole thing. The son's bullies roll up to the house, and they like kill all of them. They're chopping them up.
Oh yeah. They kill. So the parents kill these fucking bullies.
Yeah, so they save the son. They kill the son's bullies. They release the father's dick. The young girl comes back, and then that's the movie.
They're
No,
all
so what's
breastfeeding.
no. So what is this movie about?
Okay. So my whole thing is I think Visitor Q isn't real. I think Visitor Q represents the dad's subconscious. He represents all of these repressed things he wants to do, and that gets unlocked after he fucks his daughter. So imagine this guy knows his daughter is a prostitute, and he's repressing this idea like, oh, my daughter's pretty fine. This is hard to talk about.
This is all hard to talk about.
And so anyway, he fucks the daughter, and that's when Visitor Q rolls up. Meaning that when he fucks his daughter, he's done this really repressed, fucked up thing. That's what releases, like, the levees have broken, and he's free to do all these weird shit. All right, so in that same year, we've got another big heavy hitter. So in the same year, in September of 2001, Takashi Miike releases Ichi the Killer. All right. So pretty much how this movie started was one day Takashi Miike was hanging out with his producer Dai Miyazaki, and he saw a manga on the producer's desk, and that manga was called Ichi the Killer. So he started reading it, he became intrigued, and soon after they actually contacted the writer Hideo Yamamoto. And they started collaborating to form a script. But it's also important to mention the guy who wrote the
Manga.
He brought his trouble. He asked to bring his psychiatrist on. So this is Dai Miyazaki, Takashi Miike, Hideo Yamamoto, and Hideo's psychiatrist who's just hanging out because the guy's probably like, yeah, this guy has to come with me everywhere I go because I'm fucking crazy.
Yeah, 'cause I'm a little bit fucked in the head.
Yeah, this movie is fucked. Like real quick.
Let's go through the plot of this movie before.
So it should be noted, like for most people,
The simple plot of this movie.
this is the movie, right? So,
Yeah.
and you kind of know the plot a little bit better than I do.
Yeah. This was up until today my favorite Takashi movie. But Ichi the Killer, basically, it starts off this Yakuza boss, Anjo, the Yakuza boss gets murdered and disappears, and no one really knows he's murdered. They just know that he left, and they think he like stole a bunch of money from the Yakuza.
And by the way, when they find him murdered, it's just a bunch of organs laying around.
Well, that's the cleanup crew. When the actual Yakuza, the main central characters find find his room. It's been completely cleaned, so they don't know if he's dead or not. They're just trying to find out what happened to him.
He's just missing.
But he was
He
torn.
could be kidnapped, or
Right. But he was torn the fuck apart.
So-
but they don't know
Yes.
that.
So basically, the Yakuza boss gets murdered. They're trying to figure out what happened. Turns out he was murdered by this guy called Ichi. Ichi's this like really nerdy, like incel type kid who the only way he can get off is by watching someone get raped.
Which you mentioned that the first time we meet our character Ichi, he's watching a woman get raped, and then he jizzes all over the place, and that's when you see the credits.
Yeah, he's like out on the balcony, and like he makes a noise, and like the guy who's raping the girl comes running out, and he's like, "Who the fuck's there?" And then it goes to the shot of just like a bunch of cum on the ground, and it's just sitting there for like 10 seconds, and you're just like looking at this pile of cum, and you're just like, ugh. And then all of a sudden, the fucking titles come out of the fucking cum. But anyway, so like the movie centralizes like you've probably seen pictures of Ichi the Killer, like the movie posters. It's the guy with the scars on his face.
Mm-hmm. But that's not actually.
That's
Ichi,
not Ichi the Killer. That's Kakihara.
who is our boy Kaki. Let's get a two one of them things for Kakihara.
Yeah.
Kakihara. He kind of reminds me of Christopher Nolan's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I can
this
see
was
that.
this was before Dark Knight and all that.
But it's
He's a
important to
wild boy.
mention Kakihara is a sadomasochist. He enjoys, which means he enjoys inflicting and receiving pain. And in fact, in the manga, Kakihara has a power where he can absorb any pain.
They don't really do that in the movie. The manga
Yeah,
is
they
pretty
kinda
more
skip over it.
supernatural. The movie's kind of more just like over the top, like goofy violence.
yeah, but real people.
But
like,
the main drive for him to find Boss Anjo, the whole reason, the guy who got murdered in the beginning, is because Boss Anjo is the only one that can beat him right.
Yeah,
he's been
He's the
kicking
only
his
person
ass
that
up and
he's the
down.
only person that really inflicts pain on him. Truly,
So, like, Kakihara is like this kind of Yakuza, like, enforcer type of guy, but he's also just this fucked dude with
Yeah.
all these weird sexual desires.
Yeah.
And that's why he loves the boss so much.
He's
It's not
not-
because he's a great boss, because he fucking beat him right.
it's not that he's like he's not like gay or anything. He's not like he doesn't have homosexual feelings towards the boss. It's just that the boss is literally the only person that can inflict pain on him properly. Mm-hmm. He just has like this strange love. It's hard to explain because he even says in the movie he's not like in love with him like in like a
sexual
boyfriend
sense.
sexual
Yeah.
kind of way. It's the
So-
only person that can bring meaning to his life.
So basically, Kakihara really wants to find out what happened to this boss, and he's looking all over the place, and this one guy gives him a hint. He gives him a fake hint, and he's like, "Oh, I heard this guy knows what happened." So Kakihara tracks down that guy, and then
This is our boy Gigi who's dropping the fake hints. Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
Gigi
Gigi.
drops. Gigi's like, yeah, it was that guy. That guy knows. So Ichi, before he even fucking gets started with asking him questions, he's got him fucking suspended on a bunch of hooks that are stuck in his back.
Now, a big thing about this other guy is they're both still in the same Yakuza clan. So he's essentially like kidnapped another member of his gang without talking to like the higher ups
Yeah,
and
he didn't-
started
he
torturing
He
him.
didn't get permission.
So,
He
yeah.
didn't get the green light on this. He just took some dude's word for it and just went after this other Yakuza
And
boss.
before he even started asking questions, put the hooks on him.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
It cuts to the scene like the guy wakes up and he's literally suspended from the air with like these giant ass meat hooks going all the way down his back to his ankles, just suspending him like 5 feet in the air.
holding his skin.
Like he can't move, he can't cough or anything because he's literally just his back is like stretched like 4 inches off of his body from these hooks.
And it's only at this point that Kakihara starts asking questions, but then he's got, again, a big-ass needle, and he starts jamming it in the guy's, like, mouth, like, right at his
He
fucking...
like breaks his jaw with it.
Yeah, and his
Your boy
jawline.
Takashi Miike loves these fucking needles.
Yeah.
Just
And
needlework is
the
his, like,
sound when he's got the needle, it just... you're just like,
Again,
Oh,
it's
going
those
through his jaw.
it's those subtle things, those little details that he puts in there that just really get you. Like
that make it real.
the sound, the look, like the guy's face when it's going in. Like you can see his cheek like getting indented and piercing with it. You kind of see his cheek kind of like pop back when it finally breaks through the skin and everything. It's fucking, like Mark said, visceral.
But
Yeah.
again, he's torturing this guy, he's putting needles all up in his face and shit, and the guy's like, look, I don't know shit, which of course everybody says that at an interrogation. Although if I was this guy, I would just be like,
I
look, bro.
start saying anything.
Yeah.
It's a
make
good
this
thing to
stop.
mention too. This movie's kind of got like a Pulp Fiction kind of aesthetic. It's not really like what we're describing. Kind of sounds like a horror movie, but this is kind of like got that just like that cool like.
It's almost cartoonish.
Vibe. It's cartoonish. It's
of...
just got that really cool vibe that like Pulp Fiction has. You're seeing this shit and you're like, oh, that's fucked up, but you're not like getting sense of like this is scary or anything. It's just like, that's fucked up, dude.
So again, this guy's not talking. So Ichi, which we haven't mentioned, Ichi the whole time is making some tempura. Kakihara is making some tempura. So he's got this big.
He's frying up some shrimp.
He's got like a big thing of grease, and the guy's still not talking. He's like, "Look, dude, I literally don't know shit." And Kakihara at this point, I think he's just stoked. He's just stoked to be torturing the guy.
Yeah.
So he grabs all the
really feeling it.
So he grabs the thing of grease and
big pot of grease
and just pours it over the guy's back and the back of his head, like his back with all the fucking hooks in him.
Tats, yeah,
and the Yakuza
burning.
tattoo.
Like literally, you're just watching like the skin bubble and like the tattoos are like burning off.
Yeah,
Ugh, but no, then on his face too, like pouring it all over his face.
It's running down his head, down his eye, and like the whole side of his face.
But then basically some other Yakuza dudes roll up who like know this guy. They're like, oh, that's the guy being tortured. They're like, oh, that's my boy. They roll up and they're just like,
they're literally like Kakihara, what the fuck?
Yeah,
dude?
literally. They're like, what the fuck? And he's like, what's going on here? And then Kakihara's like, oh, that guy told me this. But then he's pointing towards Gigi, but he realizes that Gigi had left. So the guy that had tipped off Kakihara is just like, whoop, he's just out of there. And then they're all pissed off. They're all like, all right, dude, you got to answer to this. That's our dude. You've got the wrong guy. What the fuck is your problem, Kakihara? We're going to have to take off. This is a Yakuza thing. They're like, okay, to repay this for forgiveness, you need to cut off part of your finger.
Well, a big thing in Yakuza, when you upset somebody in the Yakuza, to show a sign of forgiveness, you usually cut off like a tip of your finger or something.
Your pinky finger.
Most of the time, it's a pinky finger or something like that. It's a sign of showing your guilt and you're asking for forgiveness, so you're offering a part of yourself.
You cross the boss. Now you got.
And they're like, you can't just cut off a finger for this. You
like,
really,
this is worse.
You really got to do something. So Kakihara
he's like, all right.
He's like, I really like sweets. I have a big sweet tooth, so I'm going to take away the source of my pleasure. And he just sits down. Meanwhile, he's in a purple suit with like a green...
Oh, he's swag. This whole time, this dude's swag.
A green blouse. He literally looks like the Joker. I really think like they got a lot of... Christopher Nolan got a lot of that look for the Joker.
What's that smile called? A glass glow smile?
He's got a glass glow smile.
Yeah. That's connected because he's got these two piercings.
Yeah,
so he's got the whole thing open, but he's got these two piercings that are holding
He pulls his
shut.
tongue out and just... cuts off like probably a quarter of it, just clean off. He's like looking these guys in the face, just running a knife through his tongue, just like fucking. And it's such a slow scene. Takashi makes it such a slow.
You see the whole thing.
Like he's cutting through it, and the knife kind of gets stuck, and he has to like saw it a little bit, and it's just like. And it's so real looking.
This is something that Takashi Miike does a lot, and we've talked about. Like Takashi Miike's like motto is, "Look at this shit, look at it, look at it." You're just seeing his whole tongue get cut off, and you're just like, "Fuck, dude!"
And it drags on for so long. It's not a quick scene.
And what if this dude just cut his tongue off, and we showed like an unbreaking scene?
Yes, so Kakihara, he does this, and all the dudes are just like, fuck, dude. One guy's like throwing up, and someone calls Kakihara, and they're like, yo, Kakihara, where you at? And he's like, oh, what's up, bro? Yeah, I'll be right there.
There's blood pouring out of his mouth. He's like, yeah, I'm on my way.
Yeah, exactly. Like nothing happened, you know?
Well, you kind of find it goes back and starts giving it a little bit of a background to Ichi. Ichi, apparently, when he was a kid, he saw one of his classmates. He was getting bullied, and this girl stepped in to help him, and the bullies ended up raping the girl.
A lot of bullies, a common trope.
Yeah. And he got sexually aroused while they were raping her,
and that fucked him up. He was like, "Oh, I'm a piece of shit."
So from that point forward, like the only way he can get off is by seeing someone else getting raped.
So all the main characters in this movie are just sexually fucked.
Yeah,
they're completely deranged. Sexually.
So in the beginning, Ichi's
not the shame of the BDSM community, you know what I mean? But,
but there's some fucked up trauma.
These
in
shits are fucked.
Yeah. This is the worst.
In the beginning, the woman he was watching get raped is actually she works at like this brothel. So he goes into the brothel and specifically requests her, and she comes in, and she's completely like bloodied up. She's got bruises all over her face.
And
like
battered.
She looks like she's been in like a horrible car accident, and like nobody wants to have sex with her.
And she's like, no, I saw the guy that raped you. I saw that. What did it feel like to be beat? And she's like, what the fuck? And then it cuts later on to like her she's back in like her room or whatever.
Well, she asks him. She's like, I want the guy to die, and he's like, do you want me to kill her for her?
Yeah, and that'll come in a second. So it cuts back to her hanging out with her pimp again, and he's like, oh, you're not making any money. He's like, yeah, because she's like, yeah, because you beat the shit out of me. fucking ugly. No one wants to have sex with me. So he starts beating her up again,
and then starts to rape her.
And then Ichi's outside. I think he beats off, and then he comes inside.
He comes into the room, and the guy's like, "What the fuck?" He starts like.
The dude drags him in. He gets
it's so weird because like the guys.
The first scene, the opening scene with Ichi, but this time
Ichi's stepping in.
He doesn't step in. He gets caught. The dude steps out again, and he doesn't have time to dip out, and he grabs him. So would he have like came in? I don't know.
But regardless, he's fucking up Ichi, and Ichi's just like, oh, and then he builds up his courage, and he's got this blade that comes out of the bottom of his shoe.
Yeah, he has these blades, like these shoes with blades equipped in the heels, and he taps his foot, and this big ass blade comes out, and he straight axe kicks this motherfucker in half,
like vertically in half.
It's so
and it's
so goofy.
Up.
Yeah, it looks really bad. Yeah,
it holds up.
It only holds up because it's so cartoony.
It does not hold up.
That's the first scene when you look at it, and you're just like, oh, this shit is goofy, you know?
Yeah, so like you kind of like start feeling like cool, like, oh, this Ichi dude's like, he's not bad, like he's killing the bad guys. He just killed this pimp, and like he's talking to the girl, and the girl's like, why'd you do that? And he was like, you asked me to kill him for you. And she's like, thank you so much. And he's like, well, now that I saved you, I can be the one that beats you. I'll beat you for the rest of your life.
And she gets all loopy.
She's like, oh, shit. And then you kind of realize, well, Ichi's really not this hero. Because like for a second there, you're like, oh, he's kind of like Batman. He's in like this weird like black suit.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a Batman.
He looks kind of like a superhero in a way.
He looks like he's a goofy superhero, and he just saved this girl from this abusive rapist. And then all of a sudden he's like, nah, bitch, I'm going to beat you now.
Okay, so from here, do we want to get into the rest of the plot? Because there's a lot, or should we just kind of hit some of the bangers, some of the gnarly parts? So, okay, let's rattle off a couple things you see. At one point, you see a woman getting tortured by these guys, and they just, out of nowhere, cut her fucking nipples off.
Yeah, like, she's like sitting on this glass table, and like, they like pinched her like nipples, like with these clamps, and like kind of pull them out, like have them stretched out. And they get this box cutter and extend the blade all the way out and just run it across this glass table.
That happens so quickly.
So you're hearing this like horrible screeching from, again, with the sound and everything. He just makes everything build on top of each other. I think the glass screeching across of it was the worst part for me, even though you're seeing somebody's nipple get cut off. And it's just this quick, straight, just like no stop, just like whoosh, cutting both her nipples off.
And I also just want to mention, like, they're torturing this lady because she has valuable information. Like, they want to find out who her
she's
like,
dating one of the cleaners that Ichi's working with.
So after they've cut her nipple off, this one guy, they're like, okay, we gotta find her man. Where's her man? She's not answering any questions. So then this one guy puts on these dog ears and he's like, and sniffs her fucking vagina, and he's like, oh, I know where he is, and then just goes off.
They literally go and find him based on the smell from her vagina.
Yeah,
he's
like halfway across town. This dude just sniffed this guy out from this
So one thing leads to another, and is there any other big bangers before the end? We can kind of explain the end of the movie.
That scene. So they find this guy, and they're chasing him, and he like jumps out of the building. He's like getting away from the rest of the crew, and like he thinks he's done, and then he runs into Kakihara. Kakihara is just watering a plant. And Kakihara's like, hey, we've been looking for you, and he like punches Kakihara in the face. And like Kakihara's not really fighting back, and the dude just keeps punching him, and then Kakihara steps back and he pulls his rings out from he's got these two slits in his cheek. It's called a glass glow smile. It's kind of like what the Joker has again. Again, it's Joker all over again, but they're a lot deeper and straight. And he pulls these rings out that are kind of holding these wounds together.
So he's got the whole thing open now.
And the dude punches him in the face, and it's like this really bad CGI, but it's pretty dope. And the dude, like, when he punches him in the mouth, like, his Kakihara's face expands, like, kind of like a snake. And his whole fist gets stuck in his mouth, and he's, like, trying to pull it out, and he's screaming. And he finally pulls his whole fist out, and it's a shot to his hand, and like all the bones exposed. Like he's literally just like got all the skin chewed off of his fist.
Yeah,
it's a really dope scene.
There's some other scene where I forget what was going on, but basically this guy was about to fight Gigi, we haven't mentioned, but Gigi's kind of this old man. He's also one of these guys who's kind of doing some dirty stuff to kind of come at the Yakuza.
This is literally my favorite scene in the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, the guy's like stepping up to Gigi. Twist. The guy's stepping up to Gigi. He's like, man, you're just some old man. You a bitch.
Yeah, the dude who's stepping up to him is like this big, tall, buff guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's like kind of like the muscle of like the Yakuza group.
So Gigi like backs up a little bit, and he's wearing like this big jacket, and he takes the jacket off.
Well, first he gives him them hands and lays him out.
Yeah, Gigi's getting fucked up.
Gigi starts fucking him up.
And he's like, whoa, you're really strong. I thought you were just a weak old man. He steps back and he just takes off his jacket and he's just swole as fuck.
It's really bad CGI. They basically CGI'd this like frail old man's head on like this muscled dude.
A bodybuilder. Because he's not even doing like cool karate shit. Like when he takes all that stuff out, he's just flexing.
Like it's like literally like it was like a 90-pound Japanese man before, and then they go to that scene and it's like that 90-pound old man's head on like Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. Like
in
back
his defense,
in the day,
he had a big coat, so he could have been hiding.
No.
So one thing leads to another, and we're on top of this roof, and basically Kakihara and Ichi finally face off. He's like, I finally found you. He knows that Ichi's the one that's been doing all this shit, but he's also kind of turned on by Ichi because he knows that Ichi's this fucked up guy.
He knows Ichi has the power to kill him.
So like,
he cut him in half.
So like he kind of wants to kill Ichi, but he's also kind of like, okay, I haven't been able to get my fix from a dude who beats me, right?
He wants to be challenged.
So he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then they're fighting, and then at some point, like, Ichi just starts crying. He's like on the ground.
One of Kakihara's dudes comes up, and Ichi's been hypnotized this whole time. It's really convoluted, and you really should just watch the movie. But he's like hypnotized into thinking that this one dude in Kakihara's group is his brother. So when that dude comes up to help Kakihara,
he kind of rolls up out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, my brother," and that dude shoots Ichi in the legs and kind of incapacitates him, and so he's like fucked up, and he slits that dude's throat with his kick. And then the dude's son comes up that got his throat slit,
and he's like, his throat is just gushing blood. Like, he's crawling towards his son. Yeah. His dad just like, Daddy, and then the
kid's like 8.
Yeah, and the dad just bleeding. He's just like, oh son, oh fuck, and then you're just like, fuck, dude, this kid just getting just brutalized with some serious trauma. So at that point, because like he just saw this shit happen. Ichi is like, he sees Kakihara just saw this shit happen. Kakihara's looking at Ichi crying. He's like, fuck, I can't get off.
Yeah, he's like, kill me, and like Ichi's like, he can't use his legs. He's like just crying on the floor,
like some murder me blue balls.
Yeah, and the dude's son's just like kicking the shit out of Ichi, like just bashing him in.
And Kakihara's just listening to all this, and he's just like, fuck, dude, and he grabs at these needles, and then he puts the needles through his ears so that he could shatter his eardrums.
He pierces his eardrums, and the screen goes blue.
Yeah, then all of a sudden everything changes.
There's no sound. The screen's blue. There's just this kind of like white noise sound just playing in the background this whole time.
And then we're basically in a dream sequence now because nothing was working out for Ichi. Ichi was not able to, or Kakihara was not able to get the fight he wanted. Was only to get beat like he wanted. So he just kind of delved into this fantasy where all of a sudden Ichi does get up and Ichi and him are fighting, and then Ichi eventually kind of knocks Kakihara off of a building.
Well, he stabs him a little bit. He stabs him, and he's able to block the hit, and the blade kind of cuts his forehead open.
Yeah, and Ichi's like, through his forehead, and Ichi just gushes, or Kakihara just gushes right there.
Yeah, Kakihara's like, all right, cool, I'm about to die, and then Ichi kicks him, and Kakihara falls off the building and lands on the ground, splats. Mm-hmm. And then it cuts to Gigi, the old muscle dude on the ground. He goes over and he sees Kakihara's corpse on the ground. There's no cut in his forehead.
That's where, as the audience, that's when you would find out that was
all just a dream.
Yeah, Kakihara just basically threw himself off the building and killed himself because he couldn't ever find that rush again.
Because Kakihara was kind of in a weird spot. It's like where, like you said, it was like blue balls. He was like ready to get beat, and then he doesn't get beat. And he's like, all right, you know what, fuck it. I guess I'll just do the ultimate.
Literally, like, when Ichi's like crying on the floor, he's literally like, come on, man, get up, let's do it. Like, for a minute. Like, come on, bro. Seriously, let's do this. Like, get up.
Bro, let's fight, man. We're enemies. Let's do this shit.
So after Gigi kind of examines the body and sees that he's dead, Gigi realizes that Ichi's dead, so he's upset about that. He realizes he's upset because, he's completed what he wanted to complete. He wanted to kill everyone and get back at the Yakuza for kicking him out, but he realizes, like, what does he have now? Like, he has nothing.
He got no one to beat him.
Well, no, Gigi, the old dude. He realizes his life mission's done. What does he have now? And it cuts to a scene back to the kid kicking Ichi, like just kicking the shit out. And basically, it's inferring that the kid killed Ichi,
kicked him to death.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's kicking the shit out of him. You get kicked enough in the head, you dead.
So basically, Gigi's got no more purpose to his life, and it cuts to a scene of Gigi hanging by a tree,
like hanging off a tree.
and then you see the little kid grown up. The last shot is a little kid grown up looking back at it, and the audience just kind of left with this idea that this kid has seen all this fucked up, horrible shit, and the cycle may repeat itself. Who knows? But more trauma has been unleashed into the world.
The kid's got another. Yeah, there's another violent monster built.
Which again, I want to mention that's a common trope with a lot of his movies. Even with Audition, that movie has a lot to do with trauma. With Visitor Q, you have this family that's being terrorized, so they react to it by being fucked up, weird sex people. Like all of his movies deal with trauma, and we'll get into that even more later on.
And how it just continues on through, the next generation.
Before we move on, a couple interesting things about this is the producer of this movie. When I was watching an interview with him, he was talking about how like when they were making Ichi the Killer, they knew that Miike had like an international audience, so he was like, okay, everyone's going to see this movie. I want to make a movie that shows people how extreme Japanese culture is, because a lot of people might get an idea of Japanese culture as being this kind of like people
office worker, subservient,
stoic, kind of like praying or whatever. Like they think, they just bow all the time. Yeah. But he's like, no, in reality, like we're fucked up crazy people, just like anybody else. Any other society has all. You've got the good and you've got the extreme, the bad, the ugly. You've got everything, and that's a big reason. I mean, you can imagine Miike's making this movie, and the producers in his ear are like, yeah, dude. Do that shit.
Yeah. Show it all.
It's like hentai, Hentai, when they started making hentai over there, it was more of like an answer to like Japan has really strict censorship laws. You can't show certain things, and they're real extreme about what they can and can't show. Like their porn, even like the private parts are all pixelated. Like even like something extreme that you have to be an adult to watch is still censored to a point. And so, like, the reason why most hentai artists got into it was, like, kind of like their punk wave of, like, sticking it to the man. We're just going to draw these really fucked up things, and because it's a drawing and it's a tentacle going in a vagina, you can't pixelate it. Mm-hmm. So, fuck you. And that's kind of like what this movie's doing with that. It's like, yeah, we're fucking... Most people see us as this, like, subservient, like, just quiet, mild-mannered Japanese people, but really this is what it's like underneath all that layer. Mm-hmm. This is that second layer once you peel it back. This is what we really are.
That really ugly shit.
Yeah, this is that ugly shit. We're just as fucked as the rest of you guys.
Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting goal to make, to want to be like, yeah, like, guess what? But, so we ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right, so in that same year, keep in mind, Ichi the Killer came out the same year as Visitor Q, two totally different movies. But another movie that came out in October of 2001 was a movie called The Happiness of the Katakuris, which the same year he's making this weird fucking sex porn, shitty quality movie called Visitor Q. He makes this hyper-violent crime Yakuza movie called Ichi the Killer.
And then he makes a musical claymation hybrid.
It's a musical.
Family movie?
Yeah, it's like a family. It's a weird movie. It's the way that I put it was, it's a surprisingly touching musical about a family that owns a small motel in which all of their guests suffer strange deaths. So basically, this dad buys a motel thinking that it's going to be like a big tourist destination. Nobody comes, but when people do come, they just end up dying. So his family has to bury...
Don't they all, like, commit suicide?
Some of them commit suicide, some of them just die. And so they have to bury all these bodies, and it's just this family who's trying to get by, and all this crazy shit happens. There's a bunch of weird stop-motion sequences. The movie will just randomly just go into a stop-motion scene.
Like claymation.
Yeah, claymation, like stop-motion claymation.
Not a fan of this movie, dude.
It'll also go into, like, weird musicals and shit like that.
I don't like musicals. I don't like claymation. So this movie was just like, nah.
Oh, yeah, it's a nightmare. I mean, all these movies are nightmares, but this movie's a nightmare in a different way. Like, there's not like graphic gore. Just the subject is so, like, why is this family... And by the end of the movie, the family actually bonds because they've done all this shit together. They've been through so much, burying all these bodies.
The reason why they're burying the bodies is to point out is like they want the business to be successful, so they don't want it like getting in the papers that like people just keep dying here. So like,
no one's going to come.
They're not killing these people. They're just trying to cover it up so that their business can be successful.
Yeah, they're good people. They're just going about the removal of these bodies in kind of a bad way. But again, they're not getting any business. They're just trying to look out for each other. They're just trying to stick together as a family. They've been put through all these fucked up situations. So again, you have this idea of like good people who have horrible things going on in their lives, kind of like Visitor Q, kind of like Audition.
It's kind of like Weekends at Bernie's.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So real quick, just wanted to mention again, all three of those movies came out in the same year, and I looked it up. There were actually 2 other movies that came out that year.
God
so
damn.
again, this motherfucker, like, if he's not shooting a movie, he's editing a movie. He's probably like editing at night, shooting by day, talking about the script to his next movie somewhere else.
And again, these movies are like 2 hours long. All
Yeah,
these
all
movies
these
are
movies
long
are
as
like-
shit.
a lot of them are really long.
They're
Yeah.
all way too long.
Most of them. Well, Visitor Q. Well, Visitor Q is way too long for different reasons. That's
Yeah.
only an hour and a half.
Still too long for that movie.
20 minutes of that is a daughter joking her
Yeah.
father for coming too quick.
Yeah, a lot. I mean,
bird.
a lot of his movies could be cut by about 30 minutes.
Yeah, early bird.
But just kind of want to reiterate again. This guy worked as an assistant director for 10 years. I mean, this guy got used to that life, just constantly making movies. And all that happened when he started directing movies, he had that same work ethic, but now he was the guy in charge. So he's just constantly doing shit. And one interesting thing that he said was that he's not really as much attracted to the substance of a project. He's just interested in the circumstances of doing them. For example, like when he finds out that, like, oh, these actors are going to be in this movie, we're going to have this writer, this production company, he doesn't even think like, oh, do I really want to make this kind of movie? Do I want this script? He just thinks, oh, I like those people, let's make a movie with them. Like, Keitan, you made up the analogy of
It's like working at a shitty job with like your best friends. Like,
exactly.
he doesn't. It's not so much doing the job. The job's unfulfilling. He doesn't give a shit. It's just that he gets to be around these cool people that he really enjoys working with and just do some shit.
Yeah, he just has fun, and that's the thing is like. This is his full-time job. Like, whereas most directors, they'll kind of like put out a new movie every few years. They like fully immerse themselves in it. He's just like click, bam, 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 just movie after movie after
Yeah,
movie.
Quentin
Pumping 'em out.
Tarantino brags about like, this is my 8th movie, like in all the trailers for his movies. The
This
8th
dude
film by
did 8
Quentin
movies
Tarantino.
before he did any movies.
Yeah, he did 8 movies in a year, so
So-
like a 4-year period. Like, bruh.
So moving on, we're gonna kind of rattle through a few that I watched. Like, just want to mention this real quick. When we had this topic, I went. Your boy, David, I went in. I love movies. I'm a huge movie fan, so I really went in on all of his movies.
This next one, it's not quite Visitor Q, but it's out there.
So we're gonna skip a few more movies. 2 years over to 2003, where he released Gozu. So the very first scene of Gozu, you see these like Yakuza guys in a cafe, and they're just hanging out. And there's this one particular Yakuza guy who's a little bit crazy, and he's just like, "Yo, look outside." And everyone looks over, and there's like this lady walking a dog, and they're like, "Okay, so what?" And he's like, "That's a Yakuza dog. That dog's trained to kill Yakuza." And they're all like, "Dude, what the fuck are you talking about?" So this guy just abruptly, he's like, "Fuck it," and he gets up and he goes outside and starts just grabbing the dog and throwing it against like against the wall, and he has it on the leash and he spins it around and
These are
throws
just
it.
like 2 women walking down the street like with a chihuahua, and this guy just goes out there, rips his dog out of their hand, and starts beating it into the wall.
Yeah, this is like the first. So this is like the first scene of the movie, and again, I don't want to get super into the plot, but basically, what it's about are these 2 Yakuza guys who like kind of consider themselves brothers. They're not actual brothers; they're just really tight.
The
friends.
one's like more of a mentor, and the other one's like his protege. They're brothers in the Yakuza. And the younger one, like the older dude's like just clearly gone off the deep end. He's crazy. He's out there saying everything's like just
Enemies
paranoid.
of
The dog's a Yakuza dog, and it's a fucking chihuahua. It's trained to kill Yakuza.
His car is a Yakuza trained
Yeah.
to kill Yakuza.
Yeah, he's using a Yakuza car.
So
It's
basically, the head honchos are like, yeah, you need to kill this guy. He's just too much for us. We need to take him out. And that's like basically like the start of the movie.
So they're driving around, and he's like, they're acting like everything's good, but this guy on the low knows. He's like, yeah, I'm supposed to kill this guy at some point. But anyway, at some point they stop. They go to like some truck stop or whatever, and the younger guy gets out, and he comes back, and the brother is just gone. The brother that he's supposed to kill is just not there. So then the plot becomes, okay, where the fuck is the
Gotta
guy?
find him. Gotta find my bro.
Gotta find him. So
Yakuza.
So in short, just he goes to a bunch of weird fucking places, meets a bunch of weird ass characters. At one point, he ends up at at this weird hotel where there's like this brother and a sister working there, and he stays there. And at one point, he's in like the bath, the bath area, and like the woman who owns the hotel, she like comes in while he's taking a bath. He's butt ass naked. She just rolls up. She's like, "Can I join you?" He's like, "No," and she's like, "I'd join you anyway." And comes on out, and she's just like, "Look at these big ass titties." And then he's just like, "Wait, okay, whatever." By the way, she's like really old. She's like in her 40s or 50s, and that's not really old, but you know, older. And then she just starts milking her nipples, and he's just like, "Dude, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm just trying to chill."
She's like, "Don't you want to drink this?"
Yeah, she's like, "Don't you want this? All of our guests want this." And he's just like, "No." And eventually she leaves.
That milk might have changed his life, though, man.
She real mad about like what? You don't want my fucking milk?
Yeah. She's like, she acts like that's just a normal thing. Again, this movie, a lot like Visitor Q, takes place in like another dimension. So one thing leads to another, and we find a scene where basically this woman is like milking herself, and she's like trying to summon the spirit of Gozu, which Gozu means cow head or ox head in Japanese. Yeah. And she's like beating her brother for some reason because she's like, come on, become Gozu. And he's like, I can't do it. And eventually one thing leads to another. And our main character wakes up in the middle of the night and he hears some weird noises. And he walks out to this room and he just sees a dude just chilling with a fucking full-on cow head and just staring at him. And he's just looking at him like...
dripping slime, dude.
Yeah.
Just dripping.
And he's looking at the cow head and he's just like in shock. He's like, what the fuck? So the cow head dude, the Gozu, starts walking up to him. And he starts fucking licking his face. He's like, bleh, 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 bleh. And he's just like, what the fuck? And I guess it means something. I don't really know. It's again,
doesn't he like give him like a paper or something, like telling him? Where
the boss
is?
It tells him where to go.
Yeah, he tells him where to go to find the boss, and then he just like licks his face.
Well, not the boss, but the brother he was looking
brother,
for.
Yeah.
His like mentor. Yeah. And
for some reason, at the scene, just for some reason, it also cuts to a shot of the brother who's like sucking on his like sister's titties or mother's titties or whatever.
The hotel owner.
Just for some reason, they're just like, look at this shit. Like, just again.
This.
So then we cut to the guy traveling. He's going to the place where the Gozu told him to go, and he goes to this like impound lot where they're like impounding cars and shit. And he's like, hey, I was told my brother's here, and they're like, yeah, he came here dead. He was in a car, and we smashed.
And we crushed the car.
We crushed him. And then we cut his skin off and took out all of his organs. Matter of fact, here's a bucket full of his organs. They're just like, look at this shit. And he's just like, oh. And then they're like, oh, do you want to see his skin?
You want his skin back, though?
You want to see the skin, though? You're like, for extra proof? Because he's like, no way. And they're like, okay, I'll show you his skin. You can see him, just his skin. They go up to this back room where there's a ton of different skins.
Just all types of skins. Like, you want it, you got it.
And a lot of them have the Yakuza tattoos. So you know that these dudes are like Yakuza impounders. And they go to this guy's skin. You see his back first, and they're like, yep, those are his tattoos. Fuck, that's my brother. And then this fucking weirdo, while he's showing the guy, the person he's looking for, he turns the guy around, and then there's his dick skin just chilling there, and then he points to his dick, and he's like, this is your brother. He's like, this is your man. He's just like, what the fuck, dude? So like, which is just weird. So then the guy goes outside and he's chilling in his car, and all of a sudden this woman rolls up, this like pretty attractive woman, and he's like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, oh, I'm your brother. And he's like, what? And then she starts listing these weird facts that he only shares.
Again, they're not brother. They're not like siblings. They're brothers in the Yakuza.
They're Yakuzas.
Yeah. They're more boys.
This shit gets weird, but it ain't
that weird.
It ain't that weird.
It ain't incestual.
So he's like, no way, you're not my brother. Again, I'm saying brother because I refer to him as brother. But she's like, no, like I know this weird detail, and there's this one detail about like one time when they were hanging out when he was like, hey, how'd the circumcision go? And let me see, and he's like, oh, looks beautiful as ever, looking at his dick, and she tells him that story, and he's like,
repeats the words like verbatim.
Exactly.
Conversation, yeah.
And he's like, oh, only my brother would have known that, so you really are it. And he's still like, what the fuck? And she tells him more and more weird shit about him, like one thing about how like he used to
whacked off to dogs, fucking.
Yeah, which who even shares that in the first place?
What?
You know. I mean, I guess if you are doing that shit, disclose that shit so I can be like, like,
you might need some safe advice.
Guys, I got something to tell you.
Hot take. All right.
Let's get through this.
Okay. So
get this one off me.
So basically, so he's just hanging out with his friend or his brother, who is now a girl, and he's just like, what the fuck, dude? So they're like hanging out, and he calls the Yakuza people, and
he tells the bosses, look, man, my bro's a chick now.
Well, he calls them, and they're like, "Did you kill him?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's dead, but there's something else. It's a caveat." And they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He's like, "I just gotta come see you and tell you." So anyway, so they go off, and they're traveling together. And at some point before he can bring,
she's a slut too. Like his bro's like a slut now too. She just like runs off with some truck dude because he said he wanted to show her his truck.
Yeah. And then he rolls up and he's like, what the fuck? And he's like beating up the truck guy. He's like, you can't just have sex with a random dude at a truck stop. And she's like, but he wanted to show me something. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I know, his dick. Like, so they're cruising around, like they're on their way back to the Yakuza people, where he can kind of report and tell them like, hey, this is actually him, but he's a girl now or whatever. But at some point they stay at a hotel, and they had this weird scene where like, she's like, hey, do you want to fuck me? And he's like, no, you're my brother, I'm not going to have sex with you. And then like she sleeps on the bed, he sleeps on the couch, she falls asleep, and he gets up. Then he's like kind of like taking her like blanket off, and he's like admiring her body. And then he hears this weird sound coming from her vagina, and it's like the Gozu monster sound. It's like some Gozu, and he's like, what the fuck? And she wakes up. And then she's just like,
yeah, you wanna fuck?
Yeah. She's like, she just wakes up, you see her eyes open, and the first thing she says, she's just like, you wanna have sex? And he's just like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then one thing leads to another.
She's like, well, wake me up if you wanna fuck.
Exactly. So they wake up the next day, and they're traveling to the Yakuza people, and they finally get there. And he goes inside, and he's like, yeah, like, I thought he was dead, but you gotta believe me, he was turned into a woman. They're like, what the fuck, you're crazy. And then she rolls up. He's like, okay, tell them what's up. And she's like, what are you talking about? I am the daughter of this guy, some random fucking dude who apparently knew the Yakuza boss. And the Yakuza boss is kind of like, he's not even worried about the whole thing about her being a brother anymore.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well,
he's like, who's it? Oh, exactly. He's like, who is this? And he's like, oh, I helped your dad out. And she's like, yeah, you helped my dad out. You were great. She's just making this shit up. I think she is. Who knows?
Who knows, dude? That's the thing. Like, does this even matter?
Yeah, at this point, exactly. But regardless, like, he's talking to her, it's kind of becoming a thing, and then he's like, yeah, you should come meet me up sometime, and they arrange to meet up another time. We cut forward to her going back to the Yakuza boss's house, and he's like getting the moves on with her, kissing all over her neck and shit, and he's like, hold on, give me one moment, and he goes off to this fucking like little shrine thing where he's got these big soup ladles.
Multiple soup ladles.
Yeah, different sizes, and he pulls one out, and he's like, I gotta use this to get hard, I can't get up without this, so he shoves a fucking soup ladle up his ass, and then he's like hard as fuck. He's like, oh,
ready.
There you go.
He's fully torqued,
and he starts fucking on her. And then all of a sudden, dude rolls up. The brother, the guy who was looking for him the whole time, our main protagonist, he rolls up through a fucking window. He's like, what the fuck? And then the guy with the soup ladle up his ass goes up.
He's really not cool with people trying to fuck his brother.
Yeah, he's like, no. And so the Yakuza boss guy, like, lets him in. He's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing here? I'm just trying to fuck homegirl with a soup ladle up my ass. The whole time he's got a soup ladle up his ass. And they start fighting. The guy's like, no, you're not going to fuck my brother. And he punches him in the face. The guy with the soup ladle up his ass falls back on the soup ladle. And you just see the soup ladle just going deeper and deeper into him. Then it's like milk.
Yeah, he shits out some like milk or like soup.
I don't know, dude. Just some white shit came out of his asshole.
They're milking his prostate.
Maybe. I don't know. But, so anyway, then that shit happens, and we go back to a hotel where home dude's chilling with Minami. His brother / hot girl, whatever, and then he's like, fuck it, let's have sex. And then
he gets in, he's like, shit, she bad, you know?
She bad. So they start having sex, and he's like, oh, wait, you're so tight.
And this is where the movie starts getting weird.
Yeah. Oh, this is when it starts getting weird. He can't, again, same thing with Visitor Q, he can't get out. His dick is stuck.
We got another dick stuck trope going on. Like,
yes. So
but why is his dick stuck, Payne? Let's go into that.
No, we're gonna have that. We find out. So he drags her back. He's like dragging her.
He's like dragging her back. And
he's like literally trying to rip out, and like this girl's like getting dragged across the floor, like just like violently.
Yeah, it's really weird to like watch. It's really that's the one scene that really bothered more than like.
I think there's a stretching sound effect in there, like
yeah. Just him dragging this chick's body, and she's kind of like limp, lifeless, just like getting dragged. I don't know. That shit just fucking bothered me.
So he drags her back to this room, and then he finally kind of gets out, but then there's still something grabbing. Like he gets his dick out, but then there's something there, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And there's a hand coming out of her vagina, grabbing his dick, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And like he finally gets free, and he goes to the corner. He's just like, "What the fuck?" And then the hand is like clawing to get its way out, and then the whole fucking brother, the whole ass dude, crawls out as a grown-ass man out of her vagina, and he's just like, sup?
Yeah, he's just out like, it was hot in there.
Yeah. And the movie just ends with them just chilling.
Well, yeah,
all
well,
three
like,
of them.
Yeah,
All three of them.
So as the brother climbs out of the chick, I guess he resided in, she looks all withered and lifeless and like a raisin. Like
so they put her in a bath.
Yeah,
and she's just good.
We cut scene to some time later where she's in a bath, just totally chilling, and she's like, "Yeah, hey, what's up? You guys ready to go?" And now it's
like
all
nothing
three
ever
of them.
happened.
Yeah, there, three of them walk out arm in arm, out into the sun. Just
The sunset.
Oh, and real quick before the end credits come up, there's that guy's face.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah, it's
very end.
just at the last moment, they're just like for a second, there's just a guy who's just like, gotcha,
got him.
because that's that Takashi Miike shit. He's like, I made you watch this shit.
God.
Stupid.
So boom. Did we cover enough of this? I know there's a few more movies, but we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, we'll wrap this one up. I did want to mention real quick in a Suicide Girls interview I found with Takashi Miike, the interviewer was like, in the press notes for Gozu, you call yourself crazy, which is understandable. And she's like, so have you ever been to a psychiatrist, dude? To which Takashi Miike replies, I go to the dentist, not a shrink.
Interesting.
I love that line.
Boy.
So the same movie, another movie called, the same year, 2003, that Gozu came out, he also put out a movie called One Missed Call, which was like a more mainstream Japanese horror movie. Not going to talk about that one too much. It was just kind of churned out. It's good. It's worth seeing, but
it was that whole era of like The Grudge.
Yeah, it was kind of at the same. It was riding the coattails of like The Grudge, The Ring,
Back
all that
when
type of stuff.
America was obsessed with Japanese horror for like that 2-year period.
Yeah, and in fact, that movie got remade or got an American adaptation in 2008. One Missed Call.
Wow.
Yeah. So moving forward to 2004, we've got another big weird movie called Izo, which the beginning of this movie, there's like a little intro by Takashi Miike where he's like, it was very bizarre making this film, but so are you for watching it. Just this movie, he says this. So
you should have put that in front of Visitor Q.
You could have put that in front of any of his movies.
Yeah, every one of these movies.
So this movie is based on a famous Edo period samurai assassin that was crucified and beheaded by the Japanese government. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the plot because there's not really a plot. It's basically just about this assassin guy who goes out into the world and just kills everybody that represents order. So Izo is this character that represents all of the factors in the world that are trying to destroy order. Which I think is very relevant to all of Takashi Miike's movies. They're all about this element of like you watch his movies and you're like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. But the reality is everything that's happened in a Takashi Miike movie has probably happened at some point in the world. All this weird shit exists. It exists in people's heads.
I'd like to argue that point. I don't think anyone's ever crawled out of a vagina.
Okay, all right, you're right. Actually,
Good point.
Matter of fact, this movie ends with Izo crawling out of a vagina.
Fully grown.
Yeah, fully grown. There's a scene at the end of the movie.
Hot in there.
There's a scene at the end of the movie where Izo's like running on this like CGI infinity symbol, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And he cuts the infinity symbol, and then it cuts to a scene of him just being born out of his mom, who, by the way, early in the movie he fucked his mom.
Wow.
Well,
Yep.
Yeah.
So one more thing I want to mention with this is this movie. It's really philosophical. This movie is like it's just a convoluted mess. The plot is so loose; it's really hard to understand. Like I wouldn't even say there is a plot. It might be the weirdest movie next to Visitor Q, where it's just like here's a bunch of images and you have to make your own interpretation of it. So it's just full of like philosophy. This movie is a postmodern, bizarre movie, and there's this one line where one of these guys is saying he's like, a system stems from imperfection. A perfect system is maintained through a healthy balance of irrationality. That is the Izo system. So that's the whole idea of this movie, is that like throughout all of all the order that we think we have in our lives, all these ideas of nationalities, borders, politics, philosophy, morality, all that stuff is just an illusion. And the reality is that everything is just in chaos. You have to have a certain level of irrationality, and Izo is there to bring the balance. Alright, so this is going to be probably our last big heavy hitter that we're going to talk about, but this is a big one. So after being known internationally as a horror kingpin because of movies like Audition, Ichi the Killer, even 2 Degree, Gozu, and Visitor Q, some producers are working on a show called The Masters of Horror, where they want to contact all of these different big-name horror directors to make hour-long films. So they get people like John Carpenter and Dario Argento and Tobe Hooper, and they also enlist Takashi Miike, because he's so well known for Audition, Ichi the Killer, blah, blah, blah. And they make a movie called Imprint in 2006. So this one, it's very short. It doesn't have much of a... So Miike actually said that because of movies like Audition and Ichi the Killer, he became misunderstood by international audiences, because most of his movies...
Oh, really?
Well, as far as being pigeonholed as a horror director, because most of his movies are not horror. They're mostly just weird. And he has this great quote where he's like...
Well, that's horror in itself, the unknown of his movies. I mean, a regular person who's not into this shit, watching Gozu... I could see someone that's taking that as horror because it's just fucking bizarre. That scares people more than anything half the time.
It's kind of like if you watch, like, some people consider Eraserhead a horror movie, but
exactly.
it's technically not. But because of how weird it is, it feels like horror. So he has this great line where he's talking about it, where he's like, "So I guess they thought, let's get the guy from Audition. Like, we're looking for horror directors. I don't know, let's represent the Japanese culture of horror. I don't know, Audition guy." We want to talk about the plot of this movie real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, let Mark take this one.
All right. So, we've got a Westerner. I don't really know what time or realm this takes place in.
Roughly like the late 1800s, I'd say.
He has a revolver, so it's like
True.
late 1800s, early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Westerner along with a couple other guys, and they're traveling on a boat to what we later find out is Whore Island.
Yeah, basically
Literally
Whore Island.
Yeah, where there's multiple concubines, and you get there, they're like grabbing at the gates, trying to get to these guys. They're hot for it, they're ready for it. These guys are all stoked, they're ready for it. And this Western dude, this white dude, he's looking apparently for someone specific.
Kokomo,
a long lost lover of his.
Yeah, lost lover of his, who's also a concubine. And she's not there. He inquires for her. She is not.
Prostitute.
Yeah, sex worker.
Whore Island. We're on Whore Island, guys.
I like that word, concubine. It's a good word.
Yeah. But, he inquires she's not there. The madam, or whoever he talks to, who is this kind of like...
she's a bitch.
A dwarf. Not her, but the one...
Oh, the little dwarf lady. She's like, you should stay
He's one of he's the Oompa Loompa from the...
It's a dude?
No, there's a girl.
No, that's the Oompa Loompa guy from the new Willy Wonka movies.
Oh, wow, really?
The Tim Burton ones. That little Indian dude that played all the Oompa Loompas.
Oh, really?
That's him.
Huh. Oh. Well, anyway, so he's at the island. He's looking for his girl because he knows that she was sold into prostitution somehow. Which I don't know how this guy just fucking lost his lover and she just ends up getting sold into prostitution. Like, you were keeping a better eye on it.
Well, she was originally a prostitute, and like he had to go like. Because you said he was a journalist.
True.
I thought he was a soldier, but whatever. I mean, he had to go off and do something, and when he came back to like buy her freedom, she was gone. She had been sold off. So he's trying to find her to buy her freedom.
So she's not there, and he's like, okay, I got to leave this island. And the little lady, the Oompa Loompa lady, she's like, no, you should stay. I'll give you a good rate. You can get one of our most beautiful women. And he's like, no. And she's like, no, you got to stay here. Like, you saw those dead bodies that were in the fucking water outside. Like, no, you don't want
demons and whores here.
Oh yeah, yeah. One line they say there's only demons and whores here. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I gotta stay the night. I gotta pick out a girl. So he picks out the most mysterious girl there, who's just like this spooky girl in the corner.
She's like the one girl who's not like
crawling through the cages,
trying to get to these suitors.
She wasn't down.
Yeah, she was in the back, and that's when you see the madame. It's like, get your ass out there and get that pussy to
make
work.
that pussy pay.
That's literally what she says.
So he's back in his room. He's like, okay, I got to stay here, and he's got this girl, and they're drinking sake, and then she reveals her face, and you realize that half of her face is like seriously deformed.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of got like a half a Glasgow smile, almost like a natural one, and like her eyes all fucked up.
She looks like she had like a face made of wax, and they melted a side of it.
Yeah. Which is probably what the actual special effect was, or I guess it'd be latex. But anyway, so they're hanging out, and he's like, oh, this weird actor, by the way. What was his fucking name? Billy Drago. He's like, oh, tell me a story. Tell me a bedtime story. I'm a journalist.
He literally talks like that, too.
Yeah. He's
got the weirdest fucking, like, just voice.
He kind of reminds me of the guy from The Room.
Tommy Wiseau?
Tommy Wiseau, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like,
definitely.
oh, tell me a story.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah. So she starts telling him, a story,
about her, like, childhood, and...
Yeah, and it ends up being about the girl. What was the girl's name?
Kokomo.
Kokomo. And
because he keeps screaming that over again. Oh, Kokomo, God, Kokomo.
Well, we don't even... Yeah, because, she... well, he doesn't even know that she's dead yet, I think, but he's telling the story, and she's like, okay, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you how fucking Kokomo died, pretty much. So he's walking her through, like, how she ended up at the brothel, and she finds that the Kokomo was there, and apparently... basically, Kokomo was framed for stealing the madame's, like, dinner ring. She's got many rings.
Yeah, she's got a ring that she'll put away, like, after the morning.
She puts away the ring, takes another ring out.
And then he goes back and replaces it at dinner time.
Exactly. But we find out that ring has been stolen, and we don't know who stole it at this point, but... apparently she found, like, some little artifact in her room, and she's like, whose shit is this? Whose is this? And they're like, oh, that's... What was her name again? Kokomo's. Oh, that's Kokomo's. And so then we proceed with her, like, trying to find information about the ring. Again, Kokomo doesn't know what happened to the ring, but they start torturing her anyway to get answers. They
decided it's her. It's kind of a mob mentality because she's unliked.
Yeah, she's like the most positive of the prostitutes, and the other prostitutes hate that about her. So
and she's a bottom bitch. She's getting money. She's getting rice.
Yeah. So they're like
getting rice.
They're like, let's fuck this bitch up.
No funny shit because like that's how they like get their food and stuff. So like in that scene where you see they're eating and stuff.
She's literally getting paid in rice.
Who's the Two-Face girl? Yeah,
what was her name?
I can't remember. But anyway, she does not get any rice because she's not been putting that pussy to work.
Exactly, and that's when the lady says, "Make that pussy pay."
And Kokomo's actually kind to her. The only person that's kind to her gives her some of her rice and some of her fucking snacks. And
so Kokomo is like a good girl.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, because of that stuff that has been found, or because she's been framed pretty much for stealing this ring, they take her up to another room, and then they start torturing her. And
the linen closet.
And this is key. They're like, don't hurt her face or her body because that's what's got to pay.
Yep.
But we're going to torture her. So this is when the movie starts getting wild.
Whatever. We don't gotta go into detail.
We do.
It's just like every other Takashi movie. They bust out the needles.
Yeah. Needles are in full effect.
But this should fuck me up.
So, Mark, do you want to describe what happens?
No.
Come on, Mark, come on.
We're already, like, almost 2 hours in.
Oh,
basically, they torture her.
They shove a bunch of needles through her gums.
Yeah.
Well, they shove them through her fingernails, and every single fingernail in one hand.
And then
they show the whole thing.
First, they light the incense and shove them under her armpits.
Oh yeah, they burn her armpits with incense.
Yeah.
God, this is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Then they put these needles just in her fucking fingernails, and you see the whole thing. Like, it's like, again, look at it!
They've got her, like, tied up and hog-tied on this fucking pulley system where they're, like, yanking her up and around, too, and then they, like, hoist her up.
And that's after they also put it in her gums, too.
Oh, yeah,
So it's in her fingernails and her gums, in her mouth. She's got needles coming out of her fingernails, out of her gums, and then they just hoist her on up.
They have her hanging upside down, and she starts pissing herself.
Oh, yeah, and then just to add, again, Miike's like, oh, you know what else? What if she pissed herself?
That's the one that hit me hard.
So she's just got pee rolling down her face.
Yeah, it's brutal. So and then that's when our boy Billy Drago's character is just like, no, my Kokomo.
No. Well, so this is also told by Two-Face girl, and she tells him that they left her like that, or sent her back to her room. She came back to check on her,
and she'd hung herself.
Bring her some water, and she had hung herself.
Yeah.
Then we cut back to Billy Drago.
To the frame story, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, no. And
oh, oh, God.
Yet
God,
unsatisfied with this story, somehow.
Yeah, what really happened?
Yeah, tell me what really happened. He's like, there's more here. You're leaving something out, so tell me what really happened.
Which is so weird, because she just told a super fucked up, uncensored story, and it's like, you don't think that's it?
How is that hiding not something enough for you, dude?
Yeah, although his instincts were correct, and we find out even more.
Right. Yeah, he was right. There was much more to this story.
Really, Kokomo didn't hang herself after all that.
No.
Two-Face girl came back and killed her.
Well, we also find that Two-Face girl is the one that framed her for stealing the ring. We found out the whole time that even though that Kokomo was really nice to Two-Face girl, Kokomo still just felt jealous of her. She didn't like how positive she was.
Two-Face girl felt jealous of Kokomo.
Yeah, Two-Face girl felt jealous of Kokomo because, like, she was like, okay, like, you're in this, like, as she put it, your body is in hell, but your mind is in heaven. She's so jealous of this girl because she's just so much happier, so much more beautiful than her. So she's the one that frames her. And like you said, in reality, when she finds that she's being hoisted up, all the needles in her, we find out that she actually killed him, or killed her. And then it cuts back to the frame story. And he's still not satisfied. She's like, oh yeah, it was actually me that killed her. And he's like, no, there's something you're not telling me still.
Something out.
So then we get the whole story of Two-Face Girl.
She gives it all, the whole backstory.
The whole backstory. We found
not even. She still has to explain again after that. Remember?
Were there only 3?
No. She tells the story, and then he's like, "But there's still something," and then she brings up the.
That'll kind of happen a little bit later. But we find out her whole backstory, where basically, like, Two-Face Girl came from, like, this poor rural Japanese family, and her mom was an abortionist. We see this one scene where literally her mom is just out in, like, a creek, and just, like, swagging, like, no fucks given, just pulls out a fucking baby fetus out of a bucket
and drops it in the water.
Drops it. And they do it so they're just like, look at this shit. Like, there's no lead up, there's nothing. You just out of nowhere, you're like, oh shit, oh fuck.
I almost don't know what you're looking at that first time. Like, what was that? What was that?
And that's the thing, this movie has a lot of just baby fetuses. You see, that's not the first baby fetus that you'll see.
That's one of many baby fetuses that you begin to see.
So we now know that the mom is an abortion, what do you call that? An abortionist sounds pretty sick.
I mean, that's, I don't know really how else.
That sounds like a metal band.
Yeah,
abortionist.
So we find out the mom is an abortionist. The dad is a drunk alcoholic who's like beating up his wife at one point, asking. He's like, "Saki, Saki."
Saki.
She's like, "No money, no money," and he's like, "Saki," and he starts beating the shit out of her while yelling Saki.
Yeah, I'm gonna punch and kick the Saki out of you.
Yeah,
basically.
And then we find out that he also raped his daughter. Like one day he's after a long day of beating his wife and being drunk, he's like, "What other fucked up shit can I do?" And he looks at his daughter, and then we find out that pretty much she raped her. And then it cuts to a scene of her just being like, "Fuck this shit." She bashes his fucking brains in with a rock. And then soon after, that's when we find out that because he cuts back to the frame story.
And he's like, "No, what really happened?"
After all this shit, there's still something, and that's when we find out about little Miss. Well,
first it's revealed that her mother and father, again, it goes back. She was like, "I was born in poverty." She's like restarting the story all over again. And it turns out her mother and father were brother and sister.
Oh, true. Forgot to mention that. Which means that is an incestuous. She was an incest baby.
That's why she came out deformed.
Actually, one quick thing. She came out deformed. She came out with this little thing on her head, and the mom tried to
join twin.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the mom tried to dump her.
Yeah, she like dumps her in the river and smashes her head on a rock. And then she comes back 2 days later, and the baby's like, she's like caught in like a current, like against a rock, and she's just sitting there crying, still like alive. So the mom's like, "Oh well, I guess I'll take you."
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah. With her little conjoined sister in tow.
With conjoined sister, by that we mean too. It's
it's
hand.
3 fingers.
Yeah,
it's a whole hand. It's a whole
it's a full hand. Yeah, it's a full hand, or at least the top half of the hand,
and a mouth,
including a thumb with 2 eyeballs and a mouth.
And he looks gnarly.
The mouth lays at the base of her scalp, where all for the better to chew at her head when it disobeys her.
Yeah, so like it's literally like she has like a devil on her shoulder, well, more like on her head, and the twin tells her to do like all this evil shit, and like anytime she doesn't listen to the hand, bites the shit out of her.
I think he just does it for fun sometimes. Like, wake up, bitch!
She's just jealous because like she's on a person, so she just fucks with Two-Face Girl, and Two-Face Girl's already got a roughen.
Imagine the nerves for that. That's literally all you're just blinking and biting. That's probably all the thing can do, and whispering dark secrets, I guess.
So, and we find out that little conjoined twin is the reason why Two-Face Girl had done all these horrible things. Like we find out that's the reason that she framed Kokomo. Damn, that's the reason that she framed Kokomo. Like pretty much that's her evil side. And then the guy's just like, whoa, fuck. And then
Two-Face Girl ended up actually stealing the ring of the Madame. She's the one that stole the ring.
Yeah.
And it was because
the monster wanted to eat the fucking ring because it likes pretty things.
Yeah. So we cut back to the frame
story. It also has bars. This thing. Oh,
you can sing. Yeah, there's one part where it's singing. It's like, it's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, it's soothing.
And you're seeing that little girl there too, the actress, and I'm just like, whose parents let this girl do this shit? But anyway, so we cut back.
Sad cards, baby.
So we cut back to the do the frame tail, and he's like, "Oh, you're evil as shit." And then the hand thing comes out, and it's talking to Billy Drago's character, and it's like, "Oh, remember that one time? Remember what happened to your sister? Like, you're fucked up too." And then we find out all of a sudden that apparently Billy Drago's character killed his little sister at some point.
He does mention,
they barely mention in the past.
Yeah, he does mention when he's telling her like his story and his love.
Well, the reason why he loved Kokomo was because it reminded him of his sister.
Which is also weird.
Innocent.
Which is also very weird.
Yeah, very weird. That's a weird offhand thing to say.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, fuck this shit. Like, he's triggered because she finds out that Two-Face Girl killed his... I mean, she killed his love. He finds out that she's got this weird little fucking... crazy demon thing that somehow knows about his sister. Yeah. That fucks him up.
And also spoke in Kokomo's voice.
Oh,
remember
yeah.
It's like, you were supposed to come
You
back
were supposed to help me.
This thing can mimic voices.
Yeah, it's like a demon, basically. It's not just this weird conjoined twin. It's like a demon. Like it knows, it's supernatural and knows special powers. So then he's like, fuck this shit, and he shoots her in the head, and she bends down. She's like looking down, and she raises her head up. And whose face is it?
It's Kokomo. It's your girl.
Yeah. And she's like, how could you? And he's just like, oh my god. And then they have this another like Takashi Miike signature, look at this shit moment, where you see the back of her head and there's just all the brains.
Out, and she just grabs some of her brains and is like, look.
Yeah, she holds it in front of her.
Goodness! Look at these brains.
They're running through my fingers.
And then...
Why?
And he's just like, yeah, why? So then we cut to the end of the movie. We find out Billy Drago is in jail for murder, and these two guards are like, "Oh, we're gonna have fun with you." And they give him some slop in a bucket. He's eating the slop. He's like, hop, 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 hop. And then he grabs the bucket. And he's about to eat out of the bucket. And then what does he see in the bucket?
An aborted fetus.
A aborted fetus just chilling.
Yeah, and some blood slop.
But instead of your boy being like, "What the fuck?" he's like, "Oh," and like wraps his arms around the bucket and is like whispering to it, and he's like, "Oh."
Yeah, and then we get some forest ghosts of Kokomo and his dead sister, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they're chilling right next to him. Yeah. Fucking Return of the Jedi Obi-Wan style.
Some forest ghosts, baby.
Yeah, they're just chilling. They're like, "Yeah, we with you," and he's lost his mind. He's in jail now. And that is Imprint.
There you go.
So a couple.
Is that what you wanted?
Is that what you wanted? Look at this shit. So a couple things about this movie. The screenwriter for this movie was Daisuke Tengen, the same guy that wrote Audition, but it was based on a book by a writer and porn director, Shimeko Iwai. So the person who wrote Imprint, the book, was a porn director. And another interesting thing to point out is that this movie was in English because it was made for an English television show. But get this. So you've got horrible torture scenes, you've got baby fetuses, multiple baby fetuses, all this crazy shit, and guess what happened when Takashi Miike gave this movie to Showtime for them to show on TV?
For the Masters of Horror series.
Yes. They were like, fuck no.
They were like, a strong yeah, nah, bro. Strong yeah, nah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
So this was supposed to be the last episode of it, and apparently like they were like, everyone knew like Imprint was coming out, but the last moment Showtime was just like, dude, nah. So they just did not release it. It straight up did not go on television, and they released it separately on DVD, where it even said "banned from broadcast television" at the top.
So then they own that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It literally says it's from the director of Audition and Ichi the Killer, banned from broadcast. Yeah. But it's a hard movie. This is a pretty rough movie. So I mean, again, to kind of rattle off everything that goes on in this movie. This movie, it's got rape, incest, conjoined twins, patricide, sororicide, infanticide, abortion, and just fetuses back and forth.
I actually didn't think it was that bad.
It's a hot take. I thought it was pretty fucked up.
Yeah. I wasn't too shocked by it.
I watched it twice in one night.
I
just because I wanted you to see it. I wanted to see you see it, and I
definitely thought Gozu or fucking Visitor Q were way worse.
I don't think... Well, Gozu never really... Gozu was just like, what the fuck? But Visitor Q and Imprint were definitely the movies where I was like, oh my god, dude. That was hard.
Visitor Q was rough for you, boy.
Okay, so we're kind of wrapping this all up. So
we'll get this wrapped up.
So a couple other notable movies. In 2007, he made Sukiyaki Western Django, which actually has Quentin Tarantino in it. Mm-hmm. He made this movie a year after Imprint, and it's actually also in English. It's all Japanese actors speaking English.
Actually, a pretty sick movie, man. It's actually kind of interesting to watch. It's kind of got Kung Fu Hustle-esque type things to it. It's actually a fun movie, yeah.
That's true. And let's mention, this came out before Quentin Tarantino's Django.
Django Unchained.
Yeah. He also made a movie in 2010 called 13 Assassins, which is a really good movie. Like, if there's anything you get from this, if you're not about fucked up shit, 13 Assassins is still kind of fucked up, but it's just a good action-packed movie. It's a remake of a 1963 film about a ragtag group of samurai during the Shogun-ruled Edo period Japan, which is like the mid-1800s, who are listed to kill a crazed and demented high-ranking official before he can become part of the shogunate. So this movie is awesome because, like, it's kind of slow for an hour, and then just out of nowhere, it's like a straight hour of just awesome action. So I definitely suggest that. All right, so where's Takashi Miike now? He's chilling. He almost made a movie in America in 2015 that was supposed to have Tom Hardy in it, but just kind of fell through at the last moment. And he's still making movies regularly. He's
still pumping them out. Not quite as much as he was before, but still making movies.
Still a movie a year, but yeah.
Releases in 2019.
Yeah, and he most recently...
As we live and breathe.
Yeah, he most recently released a movie called First Love, which is like kind of a love story, apparently. I haven't seen it, but it's like a love story, but still with some Takashi Miike shit. And also, interesting fact, he's also been involved with directing a children's show called Idol X Warrior Miracle Tunes, which airs every Sunday in Japan. You can catch it.
Looks pretty sick, too.
Yeah, it's directed towards children between 3 and 6. And in the credits, as you can imagine, they didn't put his whole name in the credits.
Yeah, from what we saw, it looks kind of like a mix of like live-action Pokemon and Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I'd let my daughter watch it.
Yeah. It's got some some bangers playing. Like the end credit scene was like, that was a good song.
And again, it's just so weird because like that all kind of goes to this idea of him just being a full-time director. When he's not making a super fucked up movie, he's making children's shows. Apparently he does a lot of commercials. He's just constantly back and forth, just kind of chilling, doing everything. So, I think that's about it, y'all. That's about a wrap with Takashi Miike. I mean, anything else we want to talk about here?
Let's talk about if these good times are killing us.
Oh, yeah, true. Big, yeah, let's get to that. So, are the good times killing us? For those of you guys who might need a little refresher, this is when we decide whether or not this topic is a good or a bad thing for us, our society, our civilization. Is this destroying us or is this propelling us?
You want to start it, Mark?
No, you're first this time. Mark started New Metal. You're first.
Yeah.
As much as I love these films and everything, you know what? I don't think the good times are killing us. I think this is okay. As crazy and as sick and deprived as these films are, they are saying things that most people aren't saying in films. He's like pushing it, like you're saying, like the postmodern shit. Like he's really pushing like boundaries just to push boundaries. And really just show like the monsters that's in all of us. He's not really putting out these. There's meaning behind everything he's doing. All the fucked up like incest and rape and shit. It's not. It may seem on a surface level that it's just in there to be in there, but there's reasoning behind it. He's trying to show the true depravity of man, and I think that as a whole is art and a good thing.
I'm gonna second that. I think the good times aren't killing us. I can see how someone could disagree with that. I can totally see that. But yeah, like you're saying, these movies have a deep subtext. And like we were talking about before we recorded, there's two different approaches you can have towards these movies. One can be, holy shit, look at all this fucked up shit. A bunch of, again, his signature phrase, look at this shit. And just like, wouldn't it be crazy if, she just pissed herself? I don't know. Wouldn't it be crazy if like, there's all these weird elements, but also underneath that is this other layer where you can appreciate these movies for their artistic value, what they're trying to say about the condition of mankind. And none of these movies really, they don't really celebrate violence. They just portray it.
Yeah, portray it well.
They're just like, well. Here it is. Take what you will with it. This is what people are capable of. This is the evil that works in our heads, in our streets. And it's out there, and that's his commentary. And also just the postmodern thing about life doesn't really have meaning. This morality that makes you say that this movie is disgusting doesn't mean anything because...
That's just some shit somebody came up with.
Exactly. You might have this morality, but deep inside your deep head, you're capable...
You could come up with this too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he just wasn't afraid to go there.
I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, I think I agree with you guys. These good times aren't killing us specifically, but I'm not a fan of any of it.
So when we started this, I was going to say they were killing us.
Yeah, I
remember that.
Really talking this out, like, and analyzing these movies and really just getting deep into it. There's some.
I can see some redeeming qualities to some parts, but most of these movies I'm not a fan. And most people in general are going to be looking at something on the surface level and like what. I can't even like grasp a plot from Visitor Q for the most part. Like,
Yeah,
That's.
I will say that specifically that movie that's killing us, but everything else.
Yeah, I don't think I would be mad if Visitor Q did not exist. I don't hate the movie, but I'm also kind of like, this doesn't need to be there.
I wish I
and
never
Imprint,
saw
I
it.
feel like he almost even said Imprint is just Imprint. Like he said, he's like, oh, you guys want the audition, dude? Here, I'll give you want a fucking horror movie. I'll give you this is fucking scary.
Imprint I think actually has the least amount of subtext.
They
However,
literally got fetuses in the end credits. Like,
yeah, the movie ends, and then like they show the credits, and then there's just like some fetuses just tumbling away down the river,
flowing down the creek. Like, yeah.
which by the way, a little interesting fact before we wrap up: those fetuses on set, all the different fetus models were named after the assistant directors.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that was nice.
Showing love, dude.
Great legacy. Yes. All right, guys. So, anything else we want to say before we wrap this up? And we're pretty much done here, right?
Well, don't you want to give a shout out to the Narrow?
Yes, I do want to give I was going to do that anyway, but I want to give some special thanks to the Narrow Video. They're one of the biggest. They have like one of the biggest collections of movies on the East Coast. I mean, in the whole country.
Big shout out to the Narrow.
And they were fantastic because I live right next to the Narrow, and what really helped supplement our research for this episode were the special features, which a lot of people in this day and age, we always stream everything through Amazon or Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever. But if you go out and buy a DVD or even rent a DVD, you get those special features, baby, and that'll give you a lot of insight into your movie. So big shout out to the Narrow. I also want to shout out my friend Leland Lawrence, who's a big horror movie freak. When I first kind of was reaching out for an angle on this episode, he's the one that pointed me in the direction of a bunch of really good Takashi Miike movies, which I in turn put on Unleashed onto all of you.
Thanks. Thanks a fucking lot.
All right. Any other shout outs, guys?
No, I think we're good.
No,
All
fuck
right,
everyone.
So this is an obscure one, but next week we're coming at you with something totally different. We're gonna have a great time, and whether or not it's good or bad, you can definitely say overall the good times are definitely fucking killing us.
We're dead.
Look at this! Look at it!
Look at it!
Look at it!
Abortionist!